Chapter 2026 2026 Dragon King. Here it comes. Congratulations, Lord God Lord, your strength has increased once again. Congratulations, Lord God Lord, your strength has recovered. Within the eternal divine kingdom, Suyen's illusionary light body kneeled in front of him and bowed respectfully. We are still quite a distance away from recovering to the God Lord realm. However, once we recover to the peak of the God realm, we will be able to open up that mountain guy's divine kingdom. The God Lord raised his head slightly and looked towards the direction outside the divine kingdom. Lord God Lord, everyone on this planet has already rushed over here. I reckon that the entire world will soon gather in front of the divine kingdom and prostrate before you. Suyen said respectfully to the God Lord. Oh? Why hasn't a single god arrived? The God Lord stared outside with a cold glint in his eyes as he asked indifferently. My lord, all the gods now respect the Dragon King. Perhaps only when the Dragon King arrives will the other gods come. I just don't know if that damned Dragon King will disobey my lord, Suyen immediately said. Dragon King? Hee, if they don't come, then I'll use their flesh and blood and resources to recover my strength. The God Lord of Light Wings was full of powerful majesty. He didn't care about the Dragon Palace or the Dragon King at all. It's you, Lord God Lord. Even if we kill them, after we arrive at the Boundless Star area, it's enough to have more than 10 gods from the Fire God Palace to serve you. Suyen's eyes sparkled as he said. The God Lord of Light Wings glanced at Suyen indifferently. He knew what he was thinking. However, he held his tiger head high and didn't argue with Suyen. Right now, everything was focused on recovering his own strength. As long as he recovered to the peak, how could he worry about having no gods to rely on? This time, if a god didn't come, he would treat it as his own food. The spiritual energy on this planet has recovered, and the gods have revived. Many people have obtained quite a lot of opportunities. Go outside and summon some servants to manage my divine kingdom, the God Lord of Light Wings said calmly to Suyen. Yes, Lord God Lord. I will do it right away. Suyen immediately bowed and nodded. The reason why the God Lord of Light Wings had opened up his divine kingdom and made all the living beings worship him was that he wanted to recruit some servants. All the subordinates who had once followed him in battle had died. Now, the entire divine kingdom was empty, without any living creatures. He needed at least tens of thousands of divine servants to take care of the entire divine kingdom. At the same time, he also needed to make some preparations for his future development. Earth had experienced the recovery of spiritual energy. One by one, the ancient lands of the divine kingdom appeared. This kind of opportunity was incomparably huge in the boundless star field. Under various reasons, countless elites and geniuses would naturally be born. Suyen rode on a divine light tiger, and around him were more than 10 divine light tigers. He sat proudly on it, and immediately flew out. There's a figure coming out of the eternal divine kingdom. Is it the divine Lord of Light Wings? There's movement in the divine kingdom. Quick, kneel down! At this moment, at the entrance of the eternal divine kingdom, when someone saw a figure coming out of the divine kingdom, they cried out in alarm. Some people even knelt on the ground, their faces filled with reverence. It's Suyen, the strongest person in the Fire God Palace. When Suyen rode out of the divine kingdom of light, everyone immediately recognized him. 2 to 3 billion people immediately looked at him, their eyes filled with confusion. Lord God Guanyi is preparing to recruit 10,000 divine servants into the eternal divine kingdom. Light-attributed people and talented people can join. Upon entering the eternal divine kingdom, you will become the servant of the eternal divine Lord. You will live in the eternal divine kingdom for eternity and enjoy the baptism of the divine kingdom. This will be a great opportunity for you. Those who feel that they are qualified, step onto the steps of light and enter the eternal divine kingdom. Suyen rode on top of the divine light tiger. His gaze swept across everyone in front of him as he announced proudly. Recruiting servants? When everyone heard his words, they were slightly shocked, especially those on Earth. Becoming a servant was very difficult for them to accept. Becoming a servant of the eternal God Lord and staying in the eternal divine kingdom forever, is this true? Being able to stay in the eternal divine kingdom forever, this is simply a huge opportunity. This is the eternal God Lord's divine kingdom. Different from some people on earth, the disciples who followed them all revealed excited and passionate expressions. Entering the eternal divine kingdom and living in the divine kingdom forever was simply a huge blessing. This meant that behind him was a divine Lord. In the future, who would dare to provoke him in the boundless star field? I'm willing to join! I'm willing to join! For a moment, one figure after another flew up the stairs of light. Greetings, Sir Sui-Yen. Sir, would you like to see if I have the qualifications to join? One person after another flew over and knelt in front of Sui-Yen. Very quickly, there were several 100,000 people in front of the stairs of light. Among them were former disciples of the Sacred Hall and also former disciples of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace. There were even some disciples of the Dragon Gate Academy. If the God Lord of Lightwing suppresses everyone in the future, he will join the eternal divine kingdom and become a divine servant. He will be high and mighty. Not only that, an eternal God Lord has a lifespan of 1,000,000 years. No one will dare to provoke him if he becomes the eternal God Lord's divine servant. At this moment, more people realize this problem. However, it's another story if the Lightwing God Lord can suppress the Dragon King of the Dragon Palace. Will the Dragon King and the others be a match for the Lightwing God Lord? If they aren't a match for him, why didn't the Dragon King and the others rush over to become his divine disciples despite knowing how powerful the Lightwing God Lord is? Seeing more and more people flying over, the commotion around became even greater. Soon, many people began to discuss the Dragon King and the Lightwing God Lord's strength. If the Dragon King of the Dragon Palace and the others don't kneel here, tomorrow will be the day they die. Hearing the discussions in front of them, Sui-Yen said confidently. Hearing his words, everyone felt a slight chill in their hearts. More and more people knelt in front of the stairs of light, and Sui-Yen picked 10,000 of them. The chosen people followed Sui-Yen excitedly, walking toward the eternal divine kingdom. Tomorrow, the divine Lord of Lightwing will probably come out. I wonder if the Dragon King and the others will come over. I wonder if a war will break out. Some people thought to themselves as they stood there and waited quietly. At this moment, in the North Pole's divine tomb, a huge and ferocious body was wreaking havoc in the entire divine kingdom. The divine kingdom, which covered an area of more than 10,000 kilometers, was now in an extremely sorry state. Only 1/10 of the buildings and the mountain peaks remained. I should be able to finish devouring it by tomorrow. I wonder how strong Ao Crab will be? Wang Xian stood at the top of a mountain peak and looked at it with a twinkle in his eyes. He turned around slowly and looked in the direction of the South Pole. Chapter 2027 2027 Dragon King. Here it comes. Ao Crab, Dragon of Devouring. Level 9 Wisps of Divine Fire. A day passed very quickly. When the entire interior of the divine tomb was completely devoured, Wang Xian looked towards the center. Ao Crab, whose entire body was emitting khaki and black energy, revealed a smile when he looked at its attributes. 9 wisps of divine fire. This is already sufficient, he mumbled. Under the circumstances where the Ao Crab with 9 wisps of divine fire was fighting against someone of a higher level, it was sufficient to be invincible under the Eternal Lord. In fact, he might even be able to fight against the Eternal Lord. Master, it's already the 3rd day. Shall we go over? Xiaoran walked over and looked at Wang Xian as he asked. Of course we have to go over. Since the God of Light Wings wants all the gods to go over, let's go and have a look. Wang Xian nodded his head lightly and looked at Lan Qingwei. Bring Xiaolan along. Let's go meet the God of Light Wings. All right. Lan Qingwei nodded her head. Wang Xian moved his body and flew out of the divine tomb, floating in the sky. Buzz. Name Wang Xian. Race, Yin-Yang 5 Elements Divine Dragon, Mandragon Unity. Level, 2 Wisps of Divine Fire, Fifth transformation of the Divine Dragon Transformation. Divine Crystal, 54221/1000000000000. Ability, rules the water race below its own level. Devours living things to extract divine crystals. Control of the 5 elements. Cultivation method, Divine Dragon Transformation. Ability, soul absorbing, spirit attaching, yin-yang 5 elements dragon eyes. Aspect, 5 elements millstone, dragon kingdom in the palm, dragon head under the sky, dragon body of 10,000 miles, yin-yang poles, yin-yang 5 elements alms bowl, divine dragon tail swing. Divine kingdom, dragon palace. Dragon palace, level 6. Dragon palace member, 26,633. He had a thought and an attribute appeared in his mind. Looking at his own strength, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. When Lan Qingwei and the rest obtained a bunch of resources from Qinfeiyang, he lit up the second wisp of divine fire. With 2 wisps of divine fire, he could fight against the god of 8 wisps of divine fire with his full strength. Prime Minister Gui Ao Xie and a group of girls stood beside Wang Xian. Buzz. At this moment, a black hole the size of 100 kilometers appeared out of thin air behind them. In the black hole, Xiao Lan's gigantic body slowly emerged. "Let's go to the eternal kingdom of the South Pole." Lan Qingwei touched Xiao Lan and said to him, "Woo woo!" Xiao Lan shook her body slightly and opened her huge mouth. "Buzz, buzz, buzz! Roar, roar, roar!" Just as Wang Xian and the rest were about to head to the eternal kingdom of the South Pole, the entire eternal kingdom suddenly trembled. A roar filled with endless majesty rang out. "Is the god of light wings coming out? The Dragon King and the rest are still not here. Are they preparing to fight against the god of light wings?" 3 days had already passed. At this time, the number of people gathered in front of the eternal divine kingdom had already reached a few billion. Everyone in the world had gathered here. When they saw the divine kingdom tremble in the roar, everyone's hearts trembled slightly. The radiant winged god lord had come out, but not a single god had arrived. Hua hua hua! At this time, on both sides of the entrance of the divine kingdom, divine servants wearing radiant armor quickly ran out and lined up neatly in 2 rows. Their faces were filled with fervor and piety, and even a trace of madness. At this moment, all of them were 2 levels higher than yesterday. This was a promotion given to them by their Lord God. They couldn't help but rejoice that their choice was so correct. The 5,000 people on both sides slightly raised their heads, revealing a trace of arrogance on their faces. From today onwards, they were the Eternal God Lord's divine servants. After today, the Eternal God Lord would suppress everything, and they would also be above all the living beings in front of them. Everyone was slightly stunned when they saw the divine servants who had joined the Eternal Divine Kingdom yesterday. They felt the great change in their power, and shock appeared on their faces. Is this the benefit of joining the Eternal Divine Kingdom? Everyone will increase by 2 levels in 1 day. Is this the power of a God Lord? Everyone was extremely shocked, and some of them looked regretful. Voila! Suddenly, the sound of flapping wings could be heard, and the divine servants on both sides immediately knelt on the ground. Lord God Lord Lightwing has arrived, all living beings worship him. A voice sounded from within the divine kingdom, and soon after, a huge figure filled with pressure slowly appeared. Light wings fluttered around him, and a divine crown of light appeared on his head. At this moment, God Lord Lightwing's entire body was filled with an imposing aura, and his mighty divine might enveloped a radius of tens of thousands of kilometers. God Lord Lightwing! Everyone's hearts trembled as they felt this suppressive might that was like a prison. Everyone hurriedly knelt on the ground. Wang! God Lord Lightwing landed on the top of the stairs of light, looking down at the billions of people in front of him. His eyes were filled with indifference. In his eyes, these mortals were just ants. None of the gods have arrived? God Lord Guanyi swept his gaze across everyone, his eyes flashing with a hint of coldness. Not a single god had arrived. This was a provocation to him. God Lord Guanyi's first words slightly surprised everyone. The area within a radius of more than 10,000 kilometers was deathly silent, and no one responded. The Dragon King's group had yet to arrive, causing many people to be extremely astonished. Could it be that the Dragon King really had the strength to contend with the Divine Lord of Lightwing? Reporting to the Divine Lord, not a single one of the gods with the Dragon King as their leader has arrived. They dare to disobey the Divine Lord and shall be punished with death. Sui Yan followed behind and respectfully reported loudly. Disobeying the Divine Lord shall be punished with death. The tens of thousands of divine servants on both sides also shouted with cold faces. No one can challenge my dignity. A trace of killing intent appeared in the eyes of the God Lord of Lightwing. Everyone instantly felt a chill in their hearts, as if a pair of invisible hands were pressing down on their necks. Next, is the God Lord of Lightwing going to kill the Dragon King and the others? Countless people thought in their minds. Buzz. Since the God of Lightwings has invited us, the Dragon Palace will naturally come over. I, the Dragon King, will naturally come over. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded in the void. Everyone was slightly shocked. They quickly raised their heads and looked up into the sky. This is... Right opposite the God of Lightwings, in the sky above billions of people, a gigantic black hole appeared out of thin air. Inside the black hole, Wang Xian, Guan Shuqing, and the other girls, as well as the leaders of the Dragon Palace, strolled out. The Dragon King is here! Is he going to become the disciple of the God of Lightwings? The Dragon King is here after all. It seems that the Dragon King is really afraid of the God of Lightwings. Everyone's expression changed slightly when they saw the figures of the Dragon King and the rest. Some of them could not help but mutter. Since you're here, why don't you scram to the front and kneel before us? When Sui Yan saw Wang Xian and the rest, he roared with a ferocious expression. The God of Wings of Light also stared at Wang Xian and the rest with a cold gaze. His eyes were filled with indifference. Woo woo! However, when Sui Yan's voice had just faded, a deep voice sounded. In the black hole, a gigantic object slowly appeared in everyone's sight. Its 300-kilometer-long body instantly covered the sky of countless people. When the surrounding people saw the Dragon King's figure standing on the huge beast, they were slightly shocked. Was he here to submit? Chapter 2028. 2028 God of War number 2028. Buzz. 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 In the sky in front of the eternal kingdom of South Pole, the God of Light Wings was facing Wang Xian and the rest from afar. The surrounding air was somewhat frozen. Everyone could feel a terrifying aura brewing in the middle. Wang Xian and the rest were standing on top of Xiaolan's head. They were staring at the God of Light Wings with smiles on their faces. As for Sui Yan, they did not even take a glance at him. Woo woo! Xiaolan stared at the God of Light Wings with her huge eyes and let out a soft roar. A savage aura emanated from her body without the slightest hint of fear. That space behemoth is that space behemoth. This is the space behemoth that covered Earth with the space locusts. Oh my god, this space behemoth is actually a member of the Dragon Palace. This space beast. The Dragon King and the others have this terrifying space beast. They are completely qualified to fight against the God Lord of Light Wing. Space beast, why is the Dragon King leading this space beast? This is to fight against the God Lord of Light Wing. Shocked voices came from below. Everyone's faces were filled with shock. Last time, when the space locusts covered the entire Earth, a space behemoth appeared out of nowhere and averted the disaster on Earth. Everyone thought that they were lucky. Now it seemed that this space behemoth was completely a member of the Dragon Palace, a subordinate of the Dragon King. How terrifying was this space behemoth? One thing everyone could be sure of was that it was definitely not weaker than Qin Feiyang, or even stronger. The Dragon King had brought him here with such an attitude, and it was clear that he wanted to fight against the God Lord. Sui Yan looked at the space beast that came out of the black hole, and his eyes widened in shock. When the divine servants who had joined the eternal divine kingdom saw this scene, they looked slightly embarrassed. Space beast, I didn't expect there to be another space beast on this planet. Lightwing Master was also slightly stunned when he saw Little Blue. In the universe, the most powerful single creature was the space beast. Space beasts roamed the space, feeding on all kinds of energy, or other space beasts. Each space beast had the power of a god level, and there were very few space beasts less than 5 or 6 wisps of divine fire. Slightly stronger space beasts were comparable to the eternal God Lord's strength. As for those that were stronger, there were some. In the history of the starry skies, space beasts were also known as disaster beasts. As for space locusts, they couldn't become space beasts. They were only space beasts. Ha ha ha, but if I absorb the energy of this space beast, I'll definitely be able to obtain a huge recovery. However, all of a sudden, under everyone's astonished gaze, the god of light wings suddenly roared with laughter. Hearing his excited laughter, everyone was slightly stunned. Facing such a terrifying space beast, not only is the god of light wings not worried at all, he is actually very happy. What a strong confidence he has! Everyone's eyes sparkled as they watched. As expected of the former eternal god. He is indeed arrogant. Wang Xian looked at his arrogant manner that did not put anyone in his eyes and said faintly, Used to be? When the god of wings heard Wang Xian's words, the smile on his face stopped abruptly. He stared at Wang Xian with an awe-inspiring and cold gaze. I will make all the gods my disciples. Kneel or die. I will give you 5 seconds to choose. The god of light wings was still staring at Wang Xian, and the rest with dignity. TSK, what an arrogant beast! Eight-limbed Mo Sha sneered when he saw how arrogant this fellow was and how he ignored everything. Roar, roar, since you have chosen to die, I will fulfill your wish. When the god of light wings heard eight-limbed Mo Sha's words, killing intent instantly filled his entire body. Do you really think that you can fight against me with the help of the space beasts? It's just a giant beast that is comparable to 8 wisps of divine fire. He raised his head and a pair of huge wings of light unfolded. Roar! With a tiger roar, a tiger head with a radius of more than 100 kilometers attacked Wang Xian and the rest directly. The head of the tiger of light soared into the sky as if it wanted to devour the entire sky. At this moment, the billions of people below revealed a look of fear. This is bad. If we were to fight, even if it was just a small ripple, we wouldn't be able to withstand it. This is bad. In a battle of this level, if some energy were to sweep over, tens of millions of people could be turned into ashes. When everyone saw the radiant winged god attacking, their faces revealed a look of fear. Behind them, countless people hurriedly fled into the distance. TSK, he clearly hasn't recovered to the God Lord realm yet, and he actually dares to call himself a God Lord. Humph! Ao Crab saw the radiant tiger head that was attacking them, and a trace of coldness appeared on his face. His body trembled, and a dragon head of a devouring dragon instantly condensed in the sky. The dragon head was incomparably savage, and it was also 100 kilometers in size. It was filled with an evil aura. Dragon head versus tiger head. Ao Crab versus God Lord Lightwing. Roar! 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 The dragon roared and the tiger roared. The 2 enormous dragon heads of the devouring dragon clashed against God Lord Lightwing's tiger head, tearing at it madly. In an instant, waves of terrifying light energy and dark earth elemental energy shot out in all directions. The battle erupted. Buzz, buzz, buzz! Little Blue's body shook, and streaks of earth and yellow energy appeared below, enveloping everyone below. Boom, boom, boom! Countless amounts of energy landed on the energy barrier and were completely blocked. It was the Dragon King and the others who blocked the shockwaves of the battle. The Dragon King is still on Earth. Regardless of whether Earth enters the boundless star field or encounters danger in the chaotic region, it was the Dragon King and the others who took care of it. I hope the Dragon King can defeat the God Lord of Lightwing. Look, the one who took action is the Dragon King's subordinate. He blocked the God Lord of Lightwing's attack. When everyone below saw this scene, they heaved a heavy sigh of relief. They looked up into the sky and saw the enormous dragon head and tiger head colliding. The tiger head was actually torn open with huge wounds. Oh! God Lord Lightwing's pupils constricted slightly when he saw the scene in the sky. His gaze was fixed on Ao Crab. You are actually able to withstand my attack. It seems that you really do have some strength. However, the stronger you are, the better. This means that after I kill you, I will be able to recover even faster. God Lord Lightwing's entire body revealed a sinister expression. Waves of light energy trembled on his body. A terrifying radiance covered half the sky. The Dragon King and the others are very powerful. However, you have completely angered God Lord Lightwing. You are finished. You are finished. When Suiyin saw that the Dragon King and the others were actually able to block God Lord Lightwing's attack, his expression changed slightly. However, very quickly, he growled with a malevolent expression. Chapter 2029 2029 Under the God of War. Kill the Dragon King and the others. The Lord God is invincible. How can a Dragon King be a match for the Lord God? Wait for your death. On both sides of the Stairs of Light, 10,000 divine servants were slightly shocked when they saw the powerful attacks of the Dragon King and the others. However, soon after, they roared ferociously. They had joined the Eternal Life Divine Kingdom and become the divine servants of the God Lord of Light Wing. Naturally, they hoped that the God Lord of Light Wing could kill the Dragon King and the others. They hoped that the God Lord of Light Wing could suppress the entire planet and lead them into the boundless starfield to suppress an area. The God Lord of Light Wing is invincible. He killed the small fry of the Dragon Palace. Suiyin roared loudly. The God Lord of Light Wing is invincible. He killed the small fry of the Dragon Palace. The rest of the divine servants followed suit and roared. Roar! Roar! God Lord Lightwing's body was emitting a powerful and terrifying pressure. His huge body slightly bent, and in an instant, he pounced toward Aosia toward Little Blue. His enormous wings, divine crown, and terrifying pressure. This leap of his was filled with invincible power. Little Blue, pull him into the Kun region. Lan Qingwei immediately ordered Little Blue. By pulling him into the Kun region, they would be able to gain the upper hand and prevent the battle from affecting the people below. If they were to really fight, just the aftershocks of the battle would be enough to kill everyone below. Wang! Woo woo woo! Little Blue looked at God Lord Lightwing who was charging over. His body trembled slightly, and a terrifying black hole appeared in front of him. A powerful suction force was transmitted over. This is... God Lord Lightwing's body shone brightly, wanting to resist the suction force of the Kun region. He struggled with all his might, and his incomparably powerful strength caused his body to remain motionless. Come in! Ao Qitian, Ao Xingnu, Ao Qi, and the others looked at each other and roared wildly. One chain after another, one thorn after another, a total of 11 berserk dragon species and 4 starwood dragon species pulled toward God Lord Lightwing. Even though their strength was only comparable to the 4 wisps of divine fire, it was still a considerable disturbance to the God of Light Wings. The Divine Kingdom's domain? Even if I enter, what can you do to me? The God of Light Wings moved his body and entered the Kun region. Whoosh! 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 In an instant, Wang Xian and the rest entered the Kun region as well. Everything in the sky vanished instantly. This situation is exactly the same as when Qin Feiyang wanted to suppress him for an entire lifetime. He disappeared. Where did the space beast take them? Why did he suddenly disappear? Do you guys think that the Dragon King and the rest are a match for the God of Light Wings? I still support the Dragon King to defeat the God of Light Wings. I don't know. But since they were able to bring him into the void, the Dragon King and the rest are definitely not weak. Voices of discussion came from below. Some timid people took advantage of this opportunity, and quickly hid far away. The entire Eternal Divine Kingdom was in chaos. The Lord God is invincible. Sui Yen and the divine servants only stared at the void, their faces slightly malevolent. Everyone scattered around and waited quietly. Roar! At the same time, in the Kun region, the god of light wings scanned the entire space with a cold expression. Is this the divine kingdom territory of the space behemoth? The god of light wings' face was filled with a dense aura as he stared coldly at Wang Xian and the rest. A fallen god lord is not recovering properly. Now, he wants us to become your divine disciples. Then, this time, I will let you die completely. Wang Xian stared at the god of light wings with a cold look in his eyes. A god master who had yet to recover to his peak wanted to enslave them? Roar! My light wings have been conquering the void for hundreds of thousands of years. Today, I will add your blood to my eternal divine map. The god of light wings spread his enormous wings and flapped them slightly. A divine map of light slowly appeared on his back. On the divine diagram, there was the image of a godly tiger. Below the godly tiger, countless creatures were kneeling and worshipping. In the middle, there was a gigantic blood pool. The blood pool was emitting a strong bloody smell. The entire divine diagram was gigantic and had a radius of more than 100 kilometers. Boom! The god of light leaped into the air and attacked Wang Xian and the rest directly. The divine map of light revolved around the surroundings, emitting a strong power of light. TSK, let me experience your strength! Roar, roar! Ao Crab leaped forward from Xiaolan's body. His body immediately transformed into a ferocious, devouring dragon. His entire body was filled with sharp thorns and bones. His ferocious tail swept towards the god of light wings. You're courting death! God Lord Lightwing also wagged his tail. The divine map of light spun, and streams of energy poured into the tiger's tail. Boom! A terrifying collision was heard, and God Lord Lightwing's face was filled with confidence and arrogance. His strength had recovered to 9 wisps of divine fire, and with the help of the divine map of Lightwing, his natal artifact, he felt that he was invincible under the Eternal Master. Facing the ferocious Ao Crab in front of him, he was not worried at all. However, when he collided with the Ao Crab, his expression suddenly changed. The collision between the dragon tail and the tiger tail did not send the opponent flying, even with the support of the divine map. Instead, an intense pain came from the tiger tail. Roar! 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 At this moment, the incomparably ferocious devouring dragon head directly bit towards him. Roar! Roar! God Lord Lightwing also roared loudly. The divine light diagram draped over his body, and the God Lord on the divine light diagram bit towards Ao Crab. Crack! 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 When the divine tiger on the divine light diagram bit Ao Crab, a series of cracking sounds rang out. The God Lord's expression changed slightly. How is this possible? Your strength. At this moment, his expression changed slightly. He flapped his wings slightly and 2 enormous wings of light slashed towards Ao Crab. Boom! Boom! Ao Crab also flapped his enormous wings of bone to meet the wings of light. A violent collision sounded and the wings of light disappeared instantly. Roar! Roar! Ao Crab raised his sharp dragon claws and clawed towards the body of the God Lord of Light Wings. Light Wing Divine Map, cover my body! The Light Wing Divine Master roared and covered his body with the divine map. The creatures on the map raised their hands, and a terrifying shield of light condensed in front of them. Pun! The dragon claw landed on the divine map, but there was no fluctuation at all. Damn it, you are a beast! How can you have such terrifying strength? The Light Wing Divine Master's face was extremely ugly at this time. The arrogance and confidence that he had in his hands had completely disappeared. He opened his huge mouth and a terrifying flare of light shot towards Ao Crab. Roar! Roar! Today I, Ao Crab, will definitely kill you! When Ao Crab heard his words, his entire body shot out a terrifying killing intent. Similarly, he opened his savage dragon mouth and shot out an attack covered in black spots. Boom! The sound of an explosion rang out again. Chapter 2030. 2030. The 2030 Dragon Palace was invincible in this world, and could sweep through all enemies. The short-term attack was completely evenly matched. AO Crab was very strong and could almost fight 2 levels above him. However, the God of Light Wings could not be treated with common sense. The most terrifying thing was the divine map of light wings on the God of Light Wings. It was once an eternal God-level divine artifact. Even though its power had decreased, it could still be considered invincible below the eternal God level. Xiaolan, let's fight! Wang Xian's eyes flickered as he watched the battle between Ao He and the God of Wings. With Ao He's strength, he might not be able to kill the God of Wings in a short period of time. Xiao Xian, be careful! The group of girls immediately said. With the current strength of the Dragon Palace, the only ones who could participate in the battle were Wang Xian, Xiaolan, and Ao He. The rest of Ao Qitian and the others were only comparable to the gods with 4 wisps of divine fire. Roar! Wang Xian let out a furious roar. His entire body immediately turned into a few thousand meters in size. His 7-colored body was flickering with light. Buzz! His body trembled. Behind him, the Dragon Palace slowly appeared behind him. The 5 elements grinding mill was suspended high above his head, while the Yin-Yang Tai Chi was suspended below him. Dragon Palace, boost! 5 elements, extinguish the long river! Wang Xian let out a furious roar. Streams of extinguishing long river headed straight for the God of Light Wings. Buzz! At this moment, the entire Kuan region suddenly trembled. An invisible gray energy was suppressing the God of Light Wings. Damn it, there are actually 2 gods who are comparable to 8 wisps of divine fire. The strength of you bunch of damn fellows is really beyond my expectations. However, you still have to die. Light Wing Divine Map, strengthen my body! The God Lord of Light Wing roared, and the 100-kilometer divine map slowly entered his body. His body expanded again, directly becoming 50 kilometers in size. Even Ao Crab looked much weaker in front of him. Buzz! Buzz! But at this time, Ao Crab's body also trembled. Dragon Palace buff. A level 6 Dragon Palace could increase the offensive power of a member of the Dragon Palace by 10 times. This 10 times could give Ao Crab almost 100% of the strength to fight against the Eternal God Lord. Roar! Ao Crab roared and his body also transformed into dozens of kilometers in size as he attacked the God Lord. The river of destruction swept over, and the suppression of the Kuan region descended. What? God Lord Lightwing's expression changed once more when he saw Ao Crab's strength increase once more. He stared at the river of annihilation in front of him, then waved his enormous wings. Whoosh! Light swept past, and the river of annihilation dissipated. He then leaped forward and bit at Ao Crab. Boom! At this moment, a gray energy pressed down on his body, causing his momentum to slow down slightly. Roar! Roar! At this moment, Ao Crab's sharp dragon claws landed heavily on the head of the God of Lightwing. Roar! An intense pain was emitted from the God of Lightwing's mouth. Numerous wounds appeared on his head. 5 elements trap, chains! Wang Xian stood in the distance, swaying his huge body as he shouted again. The 5 elements chains headed towards the God of Lightwing. Buzz! At the same time, the entire Kuan region trembled gently once again. A powerful force landed on the body of the God of Light Wings once again. The pressure of the Kuan region was as though the God of Light Wings was constantly supporting Xiaolan's body in battle. With Xiaolan's body size of 300 kilometers, one could imagine how terrifying the pressure was. Even though his strength was almost invincible below the Eternal God Lord, this force still placed a huge restriction on him. Whoosh! 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 Chains covered the sky as they wrapped around God Lord Lightwing. With his white body and bloody wounds on his head, God Lord Lightwing looked somewhat savage. You bunch of damnable fellows, I'm the Eternal God Lord, and you actually injured me. God Lord Lightwing, who was high up in the sky, was injured as he roared in a somewhat berserk manner. This is only the beginning. Ao Crab's enormous body flew over. His savage dragon head, terrifying dragon claws, and sharp bone spikes pounced over. Whoosh! God Lord Lightwing shook hard, and the 5 elemental chains around him instantly collapsed. He stared at Ao Crab with his blood-red eyes. Roar! With a wild roar, the countless light wings around him transformed into divine light tigers. Each divine tiger was 10 meters in size, and they pounced densely on Ao Crab. Caw caw caw! Ao Crab's gaze swept across the densely packed light bodies, and his body was also awe-inspiring. Within his dragon scales, many small devouring dragons crawled out, their blood-red eyes staring at the divine light tigers. Roar, roar, roar! 20,000 to 30,000 small devouring dragons directly bit towards the divine light tigers. Ao Crab continued to charge forward, his dragon tail sweeping out. The terrifying dragon tail even caused the entire Quinn region to tremble. Light praise, tiger tail blessing! The God Lord of Lightwing's expression changed slightly, and his tiger tail raised high. 111! The sounds of praise rang out around him, and countless phantoms floated around him. Waves of powerful light energy poured into the tiger tail. The second collision. Hong! The tiger's tail, which was blessed by billions of creatures, collided with Ao Crab once again. Crack! Crack! A cracking sound was heard. The moment the tiger's tail collided with Ao Crab, it bent slowly. The dragon's tail continued to entangle him. The praises of billions of creatures around him dissipated instantly. What? At this moment, the expression of the god of wings of light finally changed drastically. A look of panic appeared on his face. Yin Yang 5 Elemental Spear! At this moment, Wang Xian, who was floating by the side, emitted a bright and miserable glow. The 5 elemental grinding above his head emitted a 5-colored divine light. The yin-yang poles beneath his body emitted a black and white aurora. A spear condensed and was over 10 kilometers long. It directly attacked the god of light wings. Boom! In just an instant, the god of light wings, whose tail was injured by the tiger, was instantly struck by the yin-yang 5 elemental spear. This attack was Wang Xian's strongest attack at the moment. It contained 7 attributes, and its penetrative and offensive power had reached its peak. The yin-yang 5 elements spear penetrated into the winged god's abdomen and only penetrated about 1 to 2 kilometers. My strength is still 1 or 2 levels lower than him. Wang Xian shook his head slightly when he saw that his full-strength attack had only caused such damage. Of course, he did not intend to seriously injure his opponent. With his strength, it was impossible for him to do so. You ant, you deserve to die! The god of light wings was in pain. He pounced at Wang Xian with a ferocious expression. Buzz! At this moment, the Kuan region trembled again. The gray energy landed on his body, causing his body to tremble again. You are the one who deserves to die. If you want to attack our Dragon King, you have to go through me, Ao Crab! Ao Crab swayed his body and his dragon tail wrapped around him. 2 huge dragon claws clawed at him crazily. In an instant, blood gushed out. Chapter 2031. 2031. The 2031 Dragon Palace was unrivaled in this world, and it swept through all enemies. Ao! Ao! Agonized screams rang out within the Kuan region. God Lord Lightwing swayed his enormous body, and a terrifying light shot out in all directions. The divine crown above his head rose, striking towards Ao Crab. Boom! The terrifying strike caused Ao Crab to loosen his dragon tail and dodge to the side. Roar! He opened his mouth, and a terrifying black earth-colored energy tide charged towards God Lord Lightwing. Roar! Roar! God Lord Lightwing was sent flying backwards by the energy tide. Blood began to seep out of his mouth. At this moment, his eyes revealed a hint of terror. At this moment, he sensed the threat of death. Damn it, damn it! He shook his body in panic. He knew that he had been careless. He should not have entered this domain. He had never imagined that there would be creatures on this planet that could contend with him, and even injure him. If he continued to fight, he might be heavily injured or even die. Leave this domain, or I might die, God Lord Lightwing thought to himself with an extremely ugly expression. He glanced warily at Ao Crab, then turned around and fled to the back. Want to escape? Aren't you the invincible eternal God Lord? Didn't you want us to become your disciples? Why are you fleeing now? Ao Crab said mockingly when he saw that God Lord Lightwing was actually trying to escape. His body moved, shaking his enormous body as he directly charged towards the attack. As long as I leave this place, without the suppression of this space behemoth divine kingdom, I might not necessarily be a match for that monster. God Lord Lightwing's eyes flickered with light as he fled towards the void behind him. Pun! However, when he flew 500 kilometers, he suddenly seemed to hit an invisible barrier. The expression of the God of Wings of Light changed instantly. Die! Behind him, Ao Crab's terrifying dragon tail swept out once again. The God of Wings of Light, who was already hit, could not dodge in time. Boom! The dragon tail landed on the body of the God of Wings of Light, causing him to fall directly into the void. At this moment, Wang Xian's 5 Elements Annihilation River was attacking him. Buzz! The Obliteration River landed on his body, causing his body to tremble. More blood flowed out from his wound. Even if the 5 Elements Obliteration River could not injure him, it could still make him feel extremely uncomfortable. There was Ao Crab who could not be defeated even if he fought him alone. There were 2 races at the peak of the universe, the 7-colored Divine Dragon and the Kun. Under such circumstances, he felt extremely aggrieved. Entering Little Blue's Kun region, he couldn't even teleport. No, I have to get out. God Lord Lightwing felt the intense pain on his body. His tiger body shook, and the divine map of light that covered his body slowly rose. 111! All the creatures in the divine map seemed to have revived. They walked out from the divine map and stood behind it. The billions of creatures on the divine map sat cross-legged on the ground, murmuring and worshipping piously. Under the blessing of the billions of creatures, a light barrier rose up. Boom! At the same time, God Lord Lightwing's tiger palm directly attacked the area in front of him. The entire Kun region trembled slightly, and cracks appeared in front of him. Woo woo woo! Xiaolan sensed the collapse of the Kun region. With a roar, the cracks began to slowly heal. God Lord Lightwing, don't even think about escaping. TSK, I've never killed a God Lord before. You can be the first. Ao Crab looked over and shook his body as he charged towards the divine map. Boom! The terrifying collision caused the billions of living beings below the divine map to instantly dissipate. Roar! His dragon head directly bit towards the divine diagram. Below, half of the living beings of the divine diagram died. Damn it, this planet has only just recovered its spiritual energy. How can there be such a terrifying existence? God Lord Guanyi couldn't help but roar wildly. He shot out vast amounts of light energy from his mouth and attacked the Kun region once more. Ka ka ka! Cracks appeared once more. Crash! However, behind him, the sound of the light shield formed by the divine diagram collapsing could be heard. Oh no! His expression changed greatly, and he hurriedly dodged to the side. Pun! However, Ao Crab's dragon claw had already arrived, and it landed directly on God Lord Lightwing's chest. Pooh! The terrifying sharp dragon claw directly entered God Lord Lightwing's body. God Lord Lightwing was once again heavily injured. No, no! Light heal! Light life force! God Lord Lightwing roared, and the injuries on his body quickly healed. At the same time, the tiger palm attacked Ao Crab. Roar! Ao Crab opened his mouth wide and bit the tiger palm into his mouth. His sharp teeth, which were strong enough to bite through an eternal divine kingdom, were immediately broken. Roar! 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 A painful sound was heard. The face of the God of Wings of Light began to twist. Roar! A stream of bright energy spewed out from his ferocious face as he charged toward Ao Crab. Ao Crab's two gigantic bone wings blocked the front and completely blocked his attack. Don't let him escape! At this moment, Wan Xian saw the god of wings of light desperately trying to escape. He immediately spoke to Ao Crab. Roar! Roar! Ao Crab's gigantic dragon head went straight for the god of light wings. At this moment, the god of light wings completely ignored the attacks from the back. At this moment, if he did not escape, he would be done for. He continued to bite. His eyes were blood red as he charged forward once again. Crack! 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 The sound of the Kun region shattering was heard. His eyes revealed a look of hope. Ao! Ao! However, at this moment, a pain that was almost tearing his body apart came over. Half of his body was bitten directly. He felt as if his body was about to break. Bang! In front of him, the Kun region was completely torn apart. Slowly, the world that was like a black hole began to collapse. Can you escape? Wan Xian smiled when he saw the god of light wings being bitten. He moved and transformed into a human form before landing on Xiaolan's body. The world below gradually appeared in front of everyone. At this moment, countless people were scattered around. When they saw the scene in the sky, it was as though space had been shattered. Everyone widened their eyes and looked up at the sky in shock. A gigantic head appeared out of thin air above them. It's the God Lord! It's our God Lord! Ha! The God Lord has killed all of them! The God Lord has come out! Could it be that our God Lord has won? When Sui Yin and the 10,000 divine servants saw the gigantic head appear out of thin air, their faces were filled with excitement. They roared loudly. When the others saw the head appear out of thin air and heard Sui Yan's excited roars, their faces were filled with shock. Could it be? Chapter 2032. 2032. The 2032 Dragon Palace was invincible in this world, and could sweep through all enemies. Could it be that the Dragon King and the others were really killed by the God Lord of Light Wings? Everyone looked at the huge head that appeared out of thin air, and their faces were filled with shock. The God Lord of Light Wings was about to come out, which meant that nothing had happened to him. Then, roar! Roar! Just as everyone was guessing in their hearts, Sui Yin and the tens of thousands of divine servants were filled with excitement and excitement. The God Lord with his head poking out let out a miserable shriek that shook the world. Everyone was shocked and widened their eyes. Crack, crack, crack! The sky above them collapsed like glass. The Kun region had completely disappeared, and a shocking scene appeared. At this moment, the God Lord's body was bitten by an incomparably large and ferocious creature. A large amount of blood covered his snow-white body. One of his tiger palms had completely disappeared, and a rich, bloody smell filled the entire starry sky. Behind God Lord Lightwing, the Dragon King and the others stood in front of the space behemoth. Kiki, why are you running? God Lord Lightwing, didn't you want us to become your disciples? Why are you running? Aitlin Demon Sha and the others' mocking voices rang out. Roar! 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 God Lord Lightwing shook his enormous body violently, trying to break free from Ao Crab's bite. However, as a devouring dragon, Ao Crab's most powerful part was his teeth and his dragon head. How could he break free so easily? He let out a furious roar. Everyone below was completely stunned when they heard the voices of the eight-limbed Masha and the others. They were especially shocked when they saw the Light-Winged God Lord being bitten by the Dragon King's subordinates. This wasn't the Light-Winged God Lord killing the Dragon King and the others. It was the Light-Winged God Lord trying to escape. This is impossible. This is absolutely impossible. Lord Lightwing is a God Lord. This is a God Lord that can suppress an entire lifetime in the endless star field. Even if Lord God Lord hasn't recovered to his peak, he is definitely not someone an ordinary god can contend against. At this moment, Sui Yin was somewhat absent-minded. As a god that had descended here, as an expert of the endless star field, he naturally knew how powerful God Lord Lightwing was. Even if he hadn't recovered to his peak, with his current strength, he was still the strongest existence in the endless star field apart from the 5 God Lords. As long as he had some resources, God Lord Lightwing would become the 6th space expert in the endless star field. But now, he was defeated by the people of the Dragon Palace. How could this be? Gulp! On both sides of the Stairs of Light, the tens of thousands of divine servants looked at the scene in the sky in a daze. Cold sweat appeared on their heads. They opened their mouths and felt that the sky was dark. Roar! 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 At this moment, an incomparably shrill scream came from the sky. Under everyone's shocked gazes, the God of Wings struggled with all his might. His body was torn apart. There was only one head and 2 legs. Half of his body broke free and quickly fled towards the eternal divine kingdom below. Roar! Ao Crab let out a low roar. His head bit onto the half of the God of Lightwing's body and swept towards Wang Xian and the rest. Do you think you can hide just by entering the eternal kingdom? His body moved and he quickly chased after the front half of the God of Lightwing's body. He dived towards the eternal kingdom below. Buzz! In the sky, the blood of the God of Lightwing spilled onto the ground like rain. His body, which was over 100 kilometers long, rapidly shrank. When he entered the eternal divine kingdom, the entire eternal divine kingdom instantly flashed with the power of light. Ah! The light flashed, and a repulsive force repelled Suiyan and the other divine servants. God Lord Lightwing sealed the entire eternal divine kingdom. The divine servants who were repelled let out a miserable shriek, their faces blank. Do you think you can stop me with your divine kingdom? Ao Crab's eyes were cold as he roared at God Lord Guangwing. His huge dragon claws clawed at the sky above the eternal divine kingdom. Boom! A terrifying force landed on the divine kingdom, causing a huge crack to appear on the light barrier. In the eternal divine kingdom, God Lord Guangwing watched this scene in shock. His face was filled with fear. How is this possible? How can there be such a terrifying existence in such a small planet? I, Guanyi, have waited for hundreds of thousands of years to be resurrected. It was not easy for me to wait for this opportunity to be resurrected. I am not willing to accept this. He looked at the crack in the eternal kingdom. When he saw Ao Crab charging in, his face was filled with despair. Let's go, we'll go too! Wang Xian's figure moved as he spoke to Guan Shuqing, Lan Qingwei, and the rest. Immediately, he flew into the eternal kingdom. Roar, roar, give me a chance! Give me a chance! I can give this eternal kingdom to you guys! Don't kill me! Wang Xian had just entered when he heard the God of Lightwings roar with a face full of fear. TSK, if I kill you, this eternal kingdom will naturally belong to us. Ao Crab said coldly, and his enormous body attacked once more. No, I am willing to become your divine servant. Don't kill me! God Lord Lightwing couldn't help but beg for mercy when he saw Ao Crab charging over. Me? You still call yourself me in front of us? You better die! Ao Crab's enormous dragon head directly bit towards God Lord Lightwing's tiger head. He was already severely injured. Without half of his strength, there was no way he could block Ao Crab's attack. Ao Crab bit on the head of the God of Wings of Light. Boom! At the same time, a destructive darkness and earth attribute covered his head. Roar! 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 A muffled voice filled with despair rang out. The life force of the God of Wings of Light had completely dissipated. Wang Xian and the rest looked at this scene indifferently. A faint smile appeared on their faces. Put away the body of the God of Wings of Light. This is a huge amount of resources. Wang Xian ordered the members of the Dragon Palace. It's the Dragon King! The members of the Dragon Palace nodded excitedly. Move all the treasures of the Eternal Kingdom into the Dragon Palace. Killing the God of Light Wings was another significant amount of resources. These resources should be able to increase the number of godly state experts in the Dragon Palace. Apart from that, the body of the God of Light Wings should be enough for Ao Qitian and the rest to upgrade to at least 5 to 6 wisps of divine fire. At that time, the high-end combat strength of the Dragon Palace would also increase a little. Wang Xian and the rest were full of smiles. Chen Feiyang, who was standing at the side, watched the scene silently. An eternal god who could easily kill him was now easily killed by the Dragon King and the rest. He could not help but feel fortunate that he did not go to the Dragon Palace to provoke the Dragon King last time. Otherwise, he would have been killed. Chapter 2033. 2033. The boundless gods were waiting. The god of light wings is dead. With that scream, the god of light wings is dead. Hiss, it seems like he's really dead. The Dragon King and the others killed the god of light wings. The Dragon King and the Dragon Palace are simply too powerful. The god of light wings could easily kill Chen Feiyang, but he still ended up dying in the hands of the Dragon King and the others. This god Lord Guanyi was so arrogant that he made us all come and worship him. He made all the gods his disciples, but in the end, he was killed by the Dragon King's Dragon Palace. Is he no longer arrogant? When everyone heard the god Lord Guanyi's miserable screams coming from the eternal divine kingdom, they all had gloating expressions on their faces. The god Lord Guanyi made all the living beings come and worship him. They didn't dare to disobey him, so everyone came. But he had arrogantly made the Dragon King and the others his disciples, and now he must have been killed. No one had a good impression of the Divine Lord. Seeing them as ants, they naturally wanted to see the Divine Lord die. Lord Suiyan, what should we do? On the steps of light, when the tens of thousands of divine servants heard the screams of the eternal God Lord's death, they were completely dumbfounded. Now that their master was dead, what could they do? What could they do? Moreover, would the Dragon King kill all of them next? What should we do? What should we do? At this moment, Suiyan was a little broken. He murmured and looked a little absent-minded. From being destroyed by the Dragon King in the Fire God Palace, to obtaining opportunities in the eternal divine kingdom, to leading a group of divine tigers of light to take revenge, his body was damaged. Now that the eternal Lord was killed, he had completely collapsed. What was he going to use to seek revenge against the Dragon King? Buzz. At this moment, the eternal kingdom opened up once again. A strong force of light was emitted from it. Under the cover of the light, Wang Xian led a group of members of the Dragon Palace out. Wang Xian looked at Suiyan in front of him indifferently. His eyes revealed a hint of coldness. Get rid of them, Wang Xian said to his subordinates from the Dragon Palace. Buzz. As soon as he finished his sentence, Ba Qi and Mo Shao waved their arms. Waves of demonic aura engulfed Suiyan and the divine servants. Dragon King, don't be arrogant. One day you will be killed too. This day will come very soon. Very soon! Suiyan felt the threat of death and roared with a ferocious face. When the demonic aura covered him, his body of light slowly dissipated. The last drop of divine blood was completely dead. The 10,000 divine servants didn't even let out a scream when the demonic aura swept past them. The eternal kingdom is now open. In 1.5 years, the Dragon Palace will take back this eternal kingdom. Wang Xian's gaze swept across the billions of people in front of him. His voice entered their minds. Let's go! After he finished speaking, he spoke to Guan Shuqing and the rest around him. Everyone landed on Xiaolan's body and left immediately. All the disciples and students of the Dragon Gate Academy, come here. I will bring all of you to the center of the eternal divine kingdom to cultivate. This is the divine kingdom of the eternal God Lord. Although it was damaged after the fall of the God Lord, the spiritual energy contained in it is still extremely terrifying. Especially for light attribute cultivators, a day of training here is equivalent to 100 days in the outside world. If you are lucky, you might have a chance to ignite the divine fire. Xiao Ran and Ji Lingfei did not leave. The two of them spoke to all the disciples and students of Dragon Gate Academy. The opening of the eternal divine kingdom was a huge opportunity for everyone. Naturally, Xiao Ran and the others first allowed the disciples of the Dragon Gate Academy to enter. After training here for a year, the overall strength of the Dragon Gate Academy would definitely rise by a level. Enter the eternal divine kingdom to train! Everyone's faces revealed an excited expression when they heard this news, especially the disciples and students of the Dragon Gate Academy. The Dragon King is still treating us well. As a local of our Earth, the Dragon King really has nothing to say about how he treats us. That's right. If it weren't for the Dragon King, we wouldn't know what would have happened. We would support the Dragon King. After the Dragon Palace destroyed the Eternal God Lord, no one on Earth would be able to compete with him. Up until now, all the gods who had descended and awakened, except for those who had joined the Dragon Gate Academy, have all been destroyed by the Dragon King. The Dragon Palace is truly invincible in this world, sweeping away all enemies. Everyone was discussing happily. The death of the Radiant Wing God Lord this time meant that the Dragon Palace was truly invincible in this world, sweeping away all enemies. Next, no one would dare to offend the Dragon King and the Dragon Palace. After a world-shaking war ended, everyone had a premonition that it would be peaceful next. Even the resurrected God Lord had been destroyed by the Dragon King. Who else would dare to challenge the dignity of the Dragon Palace? In the next few days, everything returned to normal. Wan Xian and the Dragon Palace had destroyed God Lord Guangyi this time, elevating their dignity to the peak. Countless television stations were broadcasting the glory of the Dragon King. Countless people were praising the deeds of the Dragon King. There were even people who compiled the deeds of the Dragon King into a book and spread it widely. Basically, everyone had a book on the deeds of the Dragon King. When Wan Xian saw the contents of the book from Guan Shuqing and the rest, he was a little embarrassed. He had never thought that he was so powerful. Just when the Earth was peaceful and even more prosperous, in the distant star field. The entire star field was emitting a faint white light. 5 huge suns and stars stood in the entire star field, illuminating an area of several thousand light years. In this star field, the spiritual energy was abundant. 700 to 800 life planets were located in this star field. The entire star field was magnificent and magical. In the star field, there was a starry sea, a void forest, and a meteorite belt. All kinds of magical things formed a huge star area, the boundless star area. Our Fire God Palace's last expert, God Suiyan, died a few days ago. Damn it! I wonder what happened in the recovery place. At this moment, in the boundless star area and a void space where even sunlight couldn't reach, an old man on a fiery red sharp sword said with a cold face. Around him, there were many huge beasts, splendid covers, and vast figures. They were floating in the void, looking in the direction of the void. From the figures and the eye-catching flags, it could be seen that they were the 5 forces. The skyscraping treasured palace, the fire god palace, the pyramid, the holy church, and the boundless sea of stars. Although the 5 forces weren't the strongest forces in the boundless star field, they could still be considered to be ranked in the top ranks below the 5 great god lords. More than 10 years ago, the 5 great forces had used their divine artifacts to sense the spiritual energy fluctuations in the distant starry sky and sent the gods there. But now, one bad news after another kept coming. Chapter 2034. 2034, the gods of the boundless universe were waiting. The gods of the pyramid have no news of us. Even the divine seat has been split open. The gods of the boundless universe can't be contacted either. They should have fallen as well. Your pyramid was completely destroyed by the resurrected gods and evil spirits. As for the boundless universe, only one god has successfully descended. It's normal for him to have fallen, but your fire god palace's throne has been destroyed by some dragon king. That's not a dragon king, but the leader of a powerful force. Our last news was that our holy church and the Lishao treasured palace had almost been destroyed when they joined forces. The gods who survived took out all their resources to raise a resurrected god, an existence with 6 wisps of divine fire. After preparing for revenge, there was no more news. He should have died in the hands of the Dragon King. Numerous figures floated in the air, their bodies exuding an extremely terrifying aura. Everyone's expressions weren't very good, their solemn auras causing the surrounding void to freeze. The voice resounded in the ears of every single figure. Jean Lingtian, what news does your Lishao treasured palace have? The divine beast of light pulled a huge canopy carriage, and an old man who was covered in the power of light stood on it. He held the scepter of light in his hand and asked a burly middle-aged man indifferently. The burly middle-aged man held a war hammer in his hand. His body was emitting a terrifying fighting spirit. He looked at the wrinkled old man beside him. There is still a member of our Lishao treasured palace who is still alive. However, she has betrayed us, the wrinkled old man said indifferently with a cold and gloomy face. Betrayed? The surrounding gods raised their eyebrows and revealed a mocking expression. However, I can still contact her. When I do, I can see her current location through the astral divine disk, the old man said indifferently. When he saw the expressions of the surrounding gods, a cold expression flashed through his eyes. Then I'll trouble Elderly to lock onto that planet's location, a god standing on the pyramid said to the old man. All right. The elder nodded and immediately took out a mirror. Buzz! The mirror trembled. At this moment, Ji Lingfei, who was far away on Earth, had a slight change in expression. She awkwardly took out a mystical mirror from her interspatial ring. Beside her were Xiao Ran, Lu Mingxin, Chen Feiyang, and Sun Lingxiu. The group was cultivating in the eternal divine kingdom at the South Pole. What's the matter, Lingfei? Xiao Ran looked at the mirror and asked her with concern. It's a message from my master, my master. Ji Lingfei looked a little embarrassed. It's okay, open it, Sun Lingxiu said to her. Okay. Ji Lingfei nodded, waved her arm, and the mirror opened. Disciple, tell me about the situation on that planet. When the mirror opened, the old man's face appeared. With a dignified expression, he ordered Ji Lingfei. Master, you've nurtured me into a god. Over the years, I've brought you enough benefits and resources. In the future, treat me as if I don't exist. When Ji Lingfei saw the old man, her body trembled. Gritting her teeth, she said directly. She was filled with gratitude towards her master, who had nurtured her into a god. However, all these years, everything she had done was already enough to repay him. However, when faced with her master treating her as a chess piece, her heart was incomparably cold. She might as well end it. Vile disciple, I can give you all of this, and I can also take all of it away from you. Humph! When the old man heard his words, an unconcealed killing intent appeared on his face as he coldly shouted at her. After he had said that, he hung up the mirror and the image disappeared. Hearing her master's words, Ji Lingfei bit her lips, her eyes slightly red. Lingfei, it's okay. I'm here. Xiao Ran walked over and gently put his arm around her shoulder, comforting her in a low voice. Hall Master! In the endless star area, the old man looked at the burly middle-aged man and bowed slightly. The gods of all the forces around them all looked in their direction, their eyes shining. They had to get everything on that planet. Especially when they found out that there was a divine tomb there, it made them a little crazy. The divine tomb was the divine kingdom of the eternal God Lord. If they could get the inheritance inside, they would have a chance to become the eternal God Lord. They would truly stand at the peak of this star field. For this, they were even prepared to personally descend to that planet. A piece of good news! The burly middle-aged man revealed a faint smile. That planet is moving towards our direction. From the route, it should be preparing to enter our boundless star field. Oh? The surrounding gods were slightly stunned, their eyes flashing with a luster. We don't know why that planet recovered, but since the spiritual essence has recovered, if they want to continue to improve and if they have ambitions, they have to enter our boundless star field. A middle-aged man riding on a 10-meter-large divine beast said indifferently, his eyes flashing with excitement. So we just have to wait here. An elder from the boundless universe narrowed his eyes and looked at the leaders around him. There are more than a dozen damaged god kingdoms on that planet. There are 2 god tombs. How are we going to divide them? An elder on the pyramid asked calmly. No one can open those two god tombs now. When the time comes, we'll rely on our own abilities. The burly middle-aged hall master of the Lishao treasured palace said indifferently. What about the other god kingdoms? If they are not easy to distribute, they can be used as cultivation areas for our disciples. The elder of the sacred hall said as he swept his gaze over the other factions. The surrounding gods slowly nodded, their eyes shining. From their point of view, the most important thing was the god tomb. After entering the god's tomb, whether they would fight or kill, that would be another matter. However, we absolutely cannot let other factions know about this planet, especially those 5 factions. At this moment, the temple master of the Lishao treasured palace said with a grave expression. We naturally know about this. Otherwise, with our strength, your Lishao treasured palace and the sacred hall wouldn't have given us such a huge benefit. The gods on the pyramid said with a faint smile. Among the 5 major factions, the pyramid faction was the weakest. The reason why the 5 major factions were able to share the benefits fairly was because they were afraid that someone among them would tell the other factions about the planet. Especially if the 5 major godlord factions knew that there was a divine tomb on that planet, they wouldn't have a problem with it. Boom! 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 Roar! 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 At this moment, roars suddenly came from the void behind them. The gods from the 5 god lords were slightly startled and hurriedly looked behind them. Chapter 2035 2035 The gods of the infinite were waiting here. It was located at the boundary of the infinite star field. There was only one life planet in a radius of more than 100,000 kilometers. At this moment, in front of that life planet, 3 enormous divine beasts were pulling an extremely luxurious sedan. At the top of the sedan, a young man was lying on it with his legs crossed. He was eating a fruit that was emitting spiritual energy. Around the void beast carriage, thousands of demigod-level maids and guards were following them. Above the beast carriage, a flag was flying. On the flag was a picture of a plant. They were flying in the void, heading towards the planet in front of them. They were bursting with terrifying power. That's right! The 5 major factions that were attracted by this unbridled power were slightly shocked. Their eyes were flickering as they stared at the flag. Our actions haven't been exposed, right? A god couldn't help but ask with slight nervousness. Impossible. Only those present know of this matter. We haven't even told some ordinary gods. The middle-aged man standing on the flaming greatsword in the fire god palace immediately said. That planet belongs to the divine leaf god lord. It should be the divine leaf god lord's son heading to that planet. Don't worry, the middle-aged shopkeeper of the soaring heavens palace said indifferently. Let's disperse. According to time, that planet should take nearly 2 years to arrive. We'll come here and wait a year later, an elder of the sacred hall said. All right, we'll prepare here a year later. The gods of the 5 great factions nodded and instantly teleported into the distance. Uncle Lin, who are those guys? At this moment, the young man lying on the divine beast starry sky sedan sensed the fluctuations coming from that side. He raised his eyebrows and asked the old man driving the divine beast sedan. Young master, I wonder what those people from the small factions are doing here. The old man swept his gaze over and shook his head. Sigh, this time father sent me to this remote planet. It's really too miserable. What's on this broken planet? The young man did not care about that group of people and said helplessly. Young master, 20 years will pass very quickly. The old man said indifferently. 20 years can suffocate me to death. The young man's face fell as he raised his head to look at the vast void. If young master can ignite 3 wisps of divine fire, the old master should let you return early. The old man smiled. However, at another location. A voice that was filled with boundless arrogance resounded throughout the entire starry sky. The voice spread over at least 1,000,000 kilometers. FUCK, Which fellow is even more arrogant than me? The young man immediately stood up and looked in the direction of the voice. Hong! In his line of sight, a wisp of darkness quickly flew towards his right and soon disappeared. This fellow runs quite fast. When the young man saw the wisp of darkness quickly disappear, he muttered, Oh! At this moment, the old man below suddenly stood up, and a grim expression appeared on his face. Young master, that man is not simple, the old man said with a serious face. Not simple? The young man was also slightly surprised. If Uncle Lin said that he was not simple, his strength was definitely not weak. Jia, I have finally passed through that chaotic star area. Here, I can fly in the sky. Jia, I have obtained the body of the demon dragon. I have a group of evil spirits. Soon, this place will be my world. The young man who was full of deviltry revealed a ferocious and excited expression. This young man was the one who obtained the dragon's soul. He had already condensed the body of the devil dragon and controlled more than 20 powerful demons. With the body of the devil dragon, he was confident that he could quickly raise his strength to the eternal God-Lord realm. At that time, he would suppress this star field, and he would become the king of this star field. This is the beginning of my road to hegemony. Devil Dragon, son of heaven's eyes burned as he flew forward and started to build his invincible path. Soon. I can sense the aura of life. In a month at most, I will be able to enter the life star area. My grandson is the true dragon son of heaven. My grandson will become the ancestor of the gods and suppress the entire star area. When the son of the earth god entered the boundless star area, a short young man was traveling through the starry sky in the chaotic star area. His body sank into the meteorites like a fish. At this moment, his face was also filled with excitement. Before he died, he had already ignited 9 wisps of divine fire. Now, as long as he had enough resources, he was confident that he could recover to the peak. Furthermore, with the body of the Earth Divine Dragon, he was confident that he would be able to reach the level of the Eternal Divine Lord. He could suppress a region and be invincible. Perhaps, soon, a legend would appear in this region. In the vast chaotic starfield, a blue planet was also heading in the direction of the boundless starfield. Teacher, I'm afraid that my master's soaring heaven's treasured palace will descend on Earth. Perhaps, when we enter the boundless starfield, they will make a move against us. In the underwater dragon palace in the ocean, Ji Lingfei was sitting at a dining table with Wang Xian, Guan Shuqing, and the other girls. Ji Lingfei recalled her master's cold killing intent not long ago, and said to Wang Xian worriedly, Don't worry, let's eat something. Wang Xian smiled at her. In the boundless galaxy, how is the strength of the Lishao treasured palace that used to belong to you? There are also a few forces from the Holy Church. The Hall Master of the skyscraping treasured palace has already ignited 9 wisps of divine fire. Excluding the gods that descended here, there are still about 30 of them. The Hall Master of the Holy Church is about the same strength as the Hall Master of the skyscraping treasured palace. His strength is also about the same. In addition, the throne room of the Fire God Palace, the Pyramid, and the Boundless Galaxy are slightly weaker. Ji Lingfei said to him, We don't have to worry about this strength. Even if the 5 factions were to join forces, they might not be as strong as the God of Light Wings. Guan Shuqing and the others comforted Ji Lingfei. That's right. Lingfei, you don't have to worry. As long as the Eternal God Lord doesn't come personally, we don't have to be afraid with Master's Dragon Palace's strength. Xiao Ran comforted her with a smile. Yeah, I'm just a little worried. After all, the endless star field is the other side's territory. Ji Lingfei thought for a moment and smiled. Just as Xiao Ran and the Dragon Queen had said, the current Dragon Palace could only be suppressed by the arrival of the 5 major god-level forces in the boundless galaxy. The other forces didn't seem to have anything to worry about either. Ji Lingfei, tell us about the boundless galaxy after dinner. Earth should be able to reach the boundless galaxy in less than 2 years. Let's understand it in advance. Wang Xian said to her. Yes, teacher. Ji Lingfei nodded. However, Wang Xian and the rest did not know that the boundless gods were already waiting for them at the entrance of the boundless star field. Chapter 2036. 2036 was more than a year away, and the boundless galaxy was about to arrive. Inside the chaotic star field, water-blue planets were shuttling back and forth. They were heading towards the boundless star field with many life planets. The boundless star field had 700 to 800 life planets and a bunch of void bases. The area of the boundless star field could not be described by kilometers. Even the distance between the two planets was over 1,000,000 kilometers, and the entire star field could be described by light years. Other than the life planets, there were tens of thousands of planets and stars in the boundless star field. In the entire star field, the 5 great god lords were the most powerful. The 5 great god lords occupied the east, west, south, north, and central areas respectively. The 5 great eternal god lords were not to be offended. Other than these eternal god lords, there were hundreds of other powers. After all, basically, there were gods born on every planet. It was also possible for there to be dozens of gods on powerful planets. As for the 5 eternal masters, each of them controlled only a few dozens of life planets. There were more than 100 of them. Wang Xian, Prime Minister Gui, and a group of leaders of the Dragon Palace sat in the Dragon King's palace and discussed some matters. Right now, they only had a basic understanding of the boundless star field. Furthermore, this information was obtained from Ji Lingfei. As for the unknown, they had to be fully prepared. Aohe, if you devour the eternal divine kingdom with the light wings, can you upgrade it to the level of the eternal God Lord? Wang Xian looked at Aohe and asked him. Dragon King, if I devour the eternal kingdom of light wings, I can upgrade my strength to the peak of the God realm. At that time, I can fight against an expert at level 1 of the eternal Lord. Aohe said to him. That's good. As long as we have the strength to fight against the eternal Lord, we have nothing to fear. Wang Xian revealed a faint smile on his face as he swept his gaze across the group of leaders. In the entire Dragon Palace, apart from the leaders, there were 9 wild dragon species, 3 starwood dragon species, and 2 thorn dragon species that ignited the divine fire. Apart from these, there were about 75 members from the other combat divisions who ignited the divine fire. Currently, there were a total of 103 members who ignited the divine fire in the Dragon Palace, excluding the group of girls and his clones. Such a large number of godly state members were all nurtured by killing countless space locusts, and killing the god of wings of light who had obtained resources from the divine kingdom. Ao Crab, who was at the peak of the Dragon Palace, was followed by Wang Xian himself. Xiaolan and Ao Qitian were about the same level of strength as him. Ao Qitian had improved after absorbing the god of wings of light's corpse. With the current strength of the Dragon Palace, it was considered a top existence even in the boundless star field. By the time Ao Crab had devoured the eternal divine kingdom and reached the peak of the godly state, they wouldn't be too afraid of the 5 major god-level forces. Of course, Wang Xian also knew that there was still a huge gap between their strength and the 5 overlords of the boundless galaxy. After all, the 5 major forces had been standing in the starry sky for hundreds of thousands of millions of years. During this 1 year, let all the members cultivate well. When we arrive at the boundless galaxy, we might not be so carefree anymore, Wang Xian said to them. It's the Dragon King! The leaders of the Dragon Palace nodded. Wang Xian waved his hand and walked forward. Hey, our busy man is here! He came to the left and right of the Dragon King's palace. When he walked over, he heard 2 sarcastic voices. Come and take a look at the 2 of you! Wang Xian looked at Hua Kai and revealed a smile. HMPH, if you don't accompany those wives, they will get jealous again. That's right. They still want us to call them mothers. Why don't they take a look at their own age? The 2 little girls said with displeasure on their faces. Wang Xian smiled embarrassedly. He came to the chair in front of their residence and laid down on it. You 2 girls, stop causing trouble for me. Do you still think that I'm not miserable enough? He shook his head slightly and said. You pervert, you're miserable. We're the ones who are miserable. We've taken in a pervert as our father, and now we have 9 stepmothers. Hua glared at him. Wang Xian smiled and argued with the 2 girls. In the following period of time, just as everyone expected, the earth had completely calmed down. Usually, Wang Xian and the group of girls were happy and accompanied the 2 little girls. As time passed, the group of girls didn't have too many conflicts with the 2 little girls. Gradually, they became more familiar with each other. In the outside world, Sun Lingxiu and Lu Mingxing often stayed in the Eternal Kingdom at the South Pole to cultivate. Not long after, Lu Mingxing ignited the divine fire and lifted the divine kingdom. Because the Eternal God Lord was of the light attribute, many of the treasures he obtained were suitable for Sun Lingxiu. In just a short year, his strength had risen to the realm of 3 wisps of divine fire, far surpassing the other girls. Qin Feiyang's strength had also recovered to the peak of the demigod realm. He only needed to build a divine kingdom to lift it. The students and disciples of the Dragon Gate Academy had cultivated in the eternal divine kingdom for a year, and each of them had received a huge increase in strength. The strength of all the living beings on Earth was much stronger than that on the supernatural continent. A year later, the eternal divine kingdom at the South Pole was devoured by Ao Crab, and the 2 tombs on Earth had completely disappeared. Wang Xian hesitated for a moment, and decided to leave the ancient divine kingdoms on Earth. Buzz! 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 A year later, at the border of the boundless starfield, numerous huge teams flew over under the leadership of the gods. 5 huge flags fluttered in the void. An incomparably huge temple with an area of more than 10,000 kilometers. Pyramids that were tens of thousands of meters tall. An ocean that covered an area of thousands of kilometers. A sea of fire. Sacred mountains that were emitting holy light. The incomparably huge divine kingdoms carried vast and majestic auras as they sailed in the void. Each banner had around 100,000 followers. Each faction had 100,000 disciples and 5 factions had 500,000 people. None of these 500,000 people were weaker than demigods. In fact, 30% of them had the strength of a demigod rank 5 or above. On every planet, they were definitely considered elites. The strength of these 500,000 people far exceeded that of the 100,000 heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals and the holy warriors. In fact, the 2 were not even on the same level. Let's enter the chaotic region and wait there for about 500 kilometers. The 5 forces gathered. In the sky above the Lingxiao Treasured Palace, a burly middle-aged man holding a giant hammer, the Lingxiao Treasured Palace master, glanced at the leaders of the 4 forces around him and said indifferently, "Good. We'll go about 500 kilometers deep. There won't be any danger. We can also avoid people finding out about the situation here." The leaders of the other 4 forces nodded. The powerful forces entered the chaotic star area and immediately began to plan and wait. Chapter 2037. 2037 Earth 2037 was coming. Boom! Boom! The 5 forces had an army of 500,000, and each of them had at least 20 God Realm experts. All the gods added together had a total of 140. When the vast skyscraping treasured palace, the sacred mountain of the sacred hall, the huge pyramid, and the river of stars entered the chaotic space zone, the meteorite, which was tens of millions of meters in diameter, was smashed into pieces. The 5 forces entered the chaotic space zone and flew 500 kilometers forward. Set up a formation immediately. We must be able to predict the arrival of any planet within 10 light years. Don't worry. Leave the formation to the pyramid. We can detect all creatures within 20 light years. That planet will arrive in a year's time at most. Within a year, we cannot let our guard down. A vast voice spread through the void as powerful array formations were set up one after another. The entire chaotic region was enveloped by a vast divine radiance. What are the gods preparing to do? They actually mobilized all of our elites. The 5 major forces have moved out together, and all the gods have arrived. What is the situation, my lords? Surprised voices came from the disciples of the various forces. They had come here without receiving any news. Even after the array had been set up, they could not contact the outside world. More than 10 years ago, we, the Li Shao treasured palace, and a few other forces seemed to have sent gods to an area where spiritual energy had been restored. Could it be for that planet? Some people guessed in their hearts as they waited quietly. What's going on? There are actually so many people coming to this godforsaken place. It seems like it was those few factions a year ago. However, what the 5 great factions did not know was that on the planet closest to the chaotic region, a young man was holding a divine artifact and shining it into the void. When he saw this scene, a curious expression appeared on his face. So many people, with such a big fanfare, searching for treasures? Interesting. The young man's interest was piqued. His eyes flickered with a luster. With a wave of his arm, a milky white plant covered it. Buzz! The plant trembled slightly and disappeared into the void. The young man immediately flew towards the chaotic star field. Young master! Not far away, Uncle Lin sensed the young man's figure and shook his head. His figure also flickered as he followed closely behind the young man. More than half a year had passed in a flash. The distance between Earth and the boundless galaxy was getting closer and closer. Dragon King, according to the markings on the starry sky map, we have one more day before we enter the boundless galaxy. On the surface of the sea above the Dragon Palace, Prime Minister Gui said slowly to Wang Xian. Yes, one more day. Wang Xian's eyes were flickering. Tell everyone that Earth will enter the boundless galaxy in one more day, he instructed Prime Minister Gui. It's the Dragon King. I'll inform Xiao Ran and the rest. Prime Minister Gui nodded and informed Xiao Ran immediately. In less than half an hour, Xiao Ran announced this matter on the internet. Are we going to the boundless galaxy? Are we going to the other vital star field? We're going to arrive tomorrow. So fast. We're going to enter another star field. Are we going to fight those aliens? I wonder what the boundless star field will look like. I heard that there are many gods crossing the void there, and there's a god lord suppressing an area. If we want to become gods, we have to enter the boundless star field. At that time, we have to fight with the chosen divine sons of many planets. When the news spread across the entire planet, everyone was in an uproar. After more than 10 years, Earth had finally arrived at the boundless star field. Now that the countdown had begun, everyone walked out of the room and looked up into the void, ready to watch the splendor of another world. Some were excited, some were sad, and some were full of fighting spirit. However, they were not too worried about their safety. With the Dragon Gate Academy and the experts of the Dragon Palace here, they weren't too worried. Everyone came to the open space. They could afford to wait for one day. They looked up at the starry sky and the future. These guys have been here for more than half a year. What are they doing? Are they waiting for the treasures to fly over? In the void not far away from Earth, a young man was hiding somewhere, looking at the 5 forces in front of him with a bored face. Only a bored person like him could do such a boring thing. Uncle Lin stood at the side with a speechless expression, protecting the young man. Everyone, the formation has detected a life planet coming over. At this moment, an excited voice suddenly sounded in front of them. The young man was slightly stunned. He immediately took out something that looked like a telescope and looked over curiously. Whoosh! 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 At this moment, the skyscraping treasured palace, the pyramid, the sacred mountain, the ocean, and the sea of fire that were standing in the void immediately headed toward a certain place. Are they here? At this moment, many gods flew out of the Divine Kingdom's palace. Their faces were filled with excitement and fervent expressions. They're here. They'll arrive in this direction in 7 to 8 hours at most. On the top of a pyramid, an old man roared in a low voice with burning eyes. 7 or 8 hours? Over 100 vast figures gathered together, their faces filled with excitement. The Divine Tomb. If we can enter the Divine Tomb and obtain the inheritance of the eternal God Lord. The gods looked at each other, their eyes filled with fanaticism. Next, it was time for them to enjoy the fruits. There's a powerful person on this planet called the Dragon Palace. We'll get rid of them first. Also, what should we do with the billions of lives on this planet? One of the gods on the pyramid asked with sparkling eyes. Leave no one alive. For the time being, no one can know about the divine tombs. A flame giant's deep and cold voice came from within the sea of fire. The eyes of the surrounding gods flickered, and they did not reply. Clearly, everyone agreed with his words. For the sake of this planet, they had lost many gods. Moreover, in their eyes, that group of mortals were nothing more than ants. All factions, get ready. When that planet arrives, surround it. Do not let even a fly fly out. The palace master of the Linshao treasured palace said with a cold expression. All right. The other gods nodded and immediately passed down the message to the 500,000-strong army. Yes, great gods! Chi Tian's shout rang out, and everyone's eyes sparkled. After more than half a year, they had a detailed understanding of this operation. More than 100 gods from the 5 major factions and 500,000 experts at the demigod level and above looked at the void in front of them. Time passed bit by bit. 7 hours later, a planet slowly appeared in their line of sight. Everyone's pupils constricted slightly. Earth was here. Chapter 2038. 2038 The terrified and despairing gods won. Earth was coming. Their fruit, their opportunity, their hope to become the eternal God Lord, was coming. Seeing the sky-blue planet, the gods revealed excited and fervent expressions. As long as they took this planet, their era in the endless star field might be coming. Whether or not they could become the 6th great God Lord force in the endless star field would depend on this one time. The leaders of the Linshao treasured palace, the sacred hall, the pyramid, the fire god palace, and the endless sea of stars revealed a crazed look in their eyes. Hall master, when the planet arrives, you go to the divine tomb. I'll take care of the rest. In the Linshao treasured palace, Elderly said respectfully to the hall master of the Linshao treasured palace. All right, I'll leave the rest to you. Clean it up as soon as possible, and then you can go to the other god tomb. The palace master nodded slowly and said, Yes, palace master. Hearing his words, Elderly's eyes revealed a trace of fervor. Wait a moment. The other 4 forces also transmitted their voices. 2 god tombs and 5 forces. At the end, they would definitely start a fight, or even a fight. However, for the sake of the shrines, they would fight even if they had to die. The atmosphere became solemn. Everyone was staring at the planet in front of them. What's that in the void in front of us? What's that? Could it be the boundless star field in front of us? What's that huge palace, the sea of stars, and the sea of fire? When Earth was getting closer and closer, everyone on Earth looked up at the void. When they saw the faintly enormous palace in front of them, the holy mountain that was emitting light, the sea of fire that contained endless flames, and the sea of stars, everyone's faces were filled with shock. Was this the world of the endless star field? That's the divine kingdom of the palace master of the soaring heavens treasured palace. That's the divine kingdom. Those holy mountains are the holy church, and that sea of fire and the sea of stars, those are the powers of the fire god palace and the endless sea of stars. However, at this moment, exclamations rang out one after another. The disciples who had descended with the gods immediately recognized those terrifying powers. Among them, there were even many families that were disciples of the Linshao treasured palace's sacred hall. When they saw the enormous Linshao treasured palace in the sky, some people were shocked while others were secretly delighted. However, very soon, some people couldn't laugh anymore. Is it the faction that descended here from the endless star field? What are they doing? Are they attacking us? They should be attacking us. Absolutely. How strong are they? Are they as strong as the God Lord of Light Wings? Hearing the disciples' exclamations, the others said with sparkling eyes. Hearing these words, the disciples who were secretly delighted turned stiff. According to their estimations, the skyscraping treasured palace, the sacred hall, and a few other forces combined might not even be as terrifying as that god Lord Lightwing. This? Some of them opened their mouths and stared ahead quietly. Whoosh! 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 At this moment, everyone saw figures rapidly flying toward the void from the direction of the Ocean Dragon Palace and the Dragon Gate Academy. There were more than 20,000 figures from the Ocean Dragon Palace and more than 500 figures from the Dragon Gate Academy. All of them were at least at the demigod level. Teacher, it's the Li Shao Treasured Palace, the Holy Hall, and the others. They are the 5 powers who descended here previously. That huge divine kingdom is the divine kingdom of the Li Shao Treasured Palace's Hall Master. They are all here. All of them are here. Jilin Fei's face was filled with anxiety and worry. She came to Wang Xian's side and said immediately, "All of them are here? They are actually waiting for us here in advance." Wang Xian's eyes sparkled as he stared at everyone in the void in front of him. At the same time, numerous gazes landed on them. There was a hint of fanaticism, disdain, and coldness in each of their gazes. Boom, boom, boom! At the same time, waves of mighty divine might covered this area. Boom, boom, boom! In the next moment, everyone on earth was shocked to discover that in the void in front of them, within the huge palace, sacred mountain, and sea of fire, figures were lined up neatly from the void as they charged towards them. No, they weren't charging over, they were surrounding them. The powerful aura and terrifying pressure caused everyone's expressions to change drastically. There are so many of them, and this terrifying pressure doesn't come with good intentions. What are they trying to do? On the ground, countless people cried out in alarm. One by one, figures could be seen with the naked eye as they surrounded Earth. Some rode on majestic demonic beasts, while others stepped on their weapons as they flew through the void. Looking at the hundreds of thousands of figures, everyone felt a chill in their hearts. Buzz. At this moment, the entire earth suddenly trembled violently. In the void, invisible energy appeared around the earth. The terrifying energy caused the entire earth to suddenly stop in the void. Some people couldn't help but stagger as shock appeared on their faces. They forced Earth to stop. Everyone was slightly shocked. Wan Xian looked at his surroundings and his face was filled with indifference. He raised his head slightly and looked at the gods that were flying towards him. We have been waiting here for more than half a year. They are finally here. Haha, they are finally here. An extremely excited voice came from the void in front of them. An old man standing on top of a pyramid shouted excitedly. At this moment, more than 100 gods flew towards Earth. Their vast auras charged over. They were filled with fanaticism. Oh! At this moment, Elderly, who was standing beside the palace master of the Li Shao Treasured Palace, swept his gaze around. His gaze locked onto Jilin Fei, who was standing in the void, and a terrifying killing intent shot out from his eyes. Evil disciple, I will personally clean up the sect today. A cold voice came out from his mouth as he shouted at Jilin Fei. They are just a bunch of ants from the ruins. So what if they have some strength? Today, I will clean up all of them. An elder from the Holy Church looked at Wang Xian and the rest who were floating in the sky above Earth and said indifferently. His voice was filled with disdain and contempt. Even though all the gods that they had descended upon had been killed, they still did not put the people on that planet in their eyes. This time, the 5 of them had come out in full force. With the combined strength of the 5 of them, in the entire boundless galaxy, other than the 5 god-level forces, there were not many who could contend against them. Wipe them all out. Let's enter the divine tomb. The palace master of the Li Shao Treasured Palace didn't even look at Wang Xian and the rest. Instead, he swept his gaze over to Earth. The divine tomb was their true goal. As for the group of people in front of them, they would kill them immediately. Kill everyone on the entire planet. Don't let any of them go. In the sea of fire, a fire giant roared coldly. Chapter 2039. 2039 Boundless Gods 2. Boom! 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 When the flame giant's cold roar sounded from the sea of fire, a terrifying killing intent shot out from the bodies of all the experts surrounding Earth. Killing them is a piece of cake. This should be the planet that the gods and some disciples descended on. I heard that the spiritual energy has recovered and a divine kingdom has appeared. It shouldn't be too easy to destroy them. The disciples of the 5 major forces surrounding the planet had a relaxed expression on their faces. They were looking down at Earth from above. Their bodies were filled with killing intent as they scanned the planet wantonly. At the same time, they were also extremely astonished. Divine tomb? What divine tomb? Could it be the divine tomb of the eternal God Lord? When Wang Xian heard the words of the flaming giant, a hint of cold killing intent flashed across his eyes. Uncle Lin, isn't that the endless chaotic starfield in front of us? Why did a planet suddenly appear out of nowhere? This bunch of people have been waiting for more than half a year just to see this planet. At this moment, a young man was lying on a floating meteorite behind the 5 major forces. He was eating fruits while watching the show. God's tomb? At this moment, the old man seemed to have not heard him. He murmured and his eyes were shining. What God's tomb? Uncle Lin, what happened to you? The young man was slightly stunned and looked at the old man curiously. Young master, we seem to have found a shocking treasure. Uncle Lin's breathing was a little hurried. If it is really like what the palace master of Lishao treasured palace said, God's tomb. The God's tomb, the tomb of the eternal God Lord? No way, that planet has the tomb of the eternal God Lord. The young man reacted and widened his eyes, his face full of shock. Uncle Lin shook his head, not daring to be sure. If there really is a God's tomb here, I'll tell Father, and Father will tell great-grandfather that I've done a great deed. I don't have to stay in this godforsaken place at all. And when the time comes, great-grandfather will definitely reward me with many treasures. The young man was excited, and his face was filled with excitement. If there really is a divine tomb, young master will not only do a great deed. Perhaps he'll be able to add another eternal God master to our eternal divine leaf. Uncle Lin also said with incomparable excitement. At this moment, the young man trembled. Evil disciple, I'll clean you up first. At this moment, in the void in front of them, an incomparably cold voice sounded. Old Li's entire body was like a terrifying tornado, and the distance of more than 100,000 meters disappeared in the blink of an eye. He held a scepter in his hand and smashed it towards Ji Lingfei's head. All of you, get rid of these ants as soon as possible. Then, go to the tomb of the gods. The hall master of the sacred hall spoke to the surrounding gods and flew straight towards Earth. Whoosh! 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 At the same time, the leaders of the other 4 forces also flew towards Earth at a rapid speed. Kill! The other gods locked onto Wang Xian and the rest and roared loudly. Kill! The 500,000 disciples surrounding them also started to move and charged towards Earth. Evil disciple, die! Elderly, who was charging at the front, was only 1,000 meters away from Ji Lingfei. The wind attribute divine weapon scepter in his hand emitted a terrifying glow. Master, I'm sorry! Ji Lingfei looked at her master and sighed helplessly. Then, she slowly closed her eyes. When he closed his eyes, a piercing sound was heard. Ao Crab, who was standing beside Wang Xian, raised his right arm. His entire right arm turned into a sharp black claw. The huge claw extended for 1,000 meters and directly penetrated Elder Li's body. What? At this moment, Elder Li, who was overwhelmed by intense pain, was filled with shock and horror on his face, which was filled with killing intent. At this moment, he felt the sharp claws that had pierced through him slowly grow bigger and completely wrap around him. How is this possible? He couldn't help but let out a low growl. His eyes instantly turned blood red as he stared at his body that had been pierced through. He was shocked. He was a god that had ignited 8 wisps of divine fire, yet his body had been pierced through in an instant. Even though he had been very careless just now, being able to penetrate his body in an instant still caused his face to be filled with shock. No, no, no! The threat of death enveloped his body as he shouted out in terror. At this moment, all the gods rushing over were completely stunned. They looked at Elderly, whose body had been penetrated, with a face full of astonishment. Elderly was an elder of the Lingxiao Treasure Hall, and he was also the deputy hall master of the Lingxiao Treasure Hall. His strength was second only to their hall master and the hall master of the Holy Church. However, in the instant just now, his body had been penetrated. Upon hearing his horrifying screams, the pupils of the gods contracted slightly. "Everyone, don't be in such a hurry to enter Earth!" At this moment, Wang Xian looked at the 5 leaders who were flying toward Earth and said faintly. His face was filled with smiles. Just like the expressions of the group of gods just now, his face and eyes were filled with disdain and contempt at this moment. "Hall Master, please save me!" A terrified begging voice sounded. Without needing Wang Xian to say anything, the Hall Master of the Lingxiao Treasure Hall, the Hall Master of the Saint Hall, and the others also stiffened. They looked in Elder Li's direction with an embarrassed expression. TSK, a god with 8 wisps of divine fire wants to kill us in front of us? And the gods of the boundless galaxy, is Earth something you can do as you please? The sharp thorn in Ao Crab's hand slowly grew longer, completely enveloping Elderly. He wanted to escape with a face full of fear, but to his horror, he realized that he couldn't break free from Ao Crab's sharp claws at all. The current Ao Crab could fight against a level 1 eternal god lord with his full power. He could easily kill a god with 8 wisps of divine fire. His strength? Seeing that Elderly could not break free even with all his might, the temple master of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace had a grave expression. Beside him, the expressions of the leaders of the Sacred Hall's Fire God Palace changed slightly, and they stopped in the air. How is this possible? How can a small, ruined Earth have such an expert? The surrounding gods from the 5 great factions widened their eyes as they looked at this scene in disbelief. This was merely a planet that had been recovering its spiritual energy for more than 10 years. To be able to produce a god that was comparable to 6 or 7 wisps of divine fire was already heaven-defying. However, the person who had attacked had actually killed Elderly, who had 8 wisps of divine fire, in an instant. Everyone took a deep breath, and a grave expression appeared on their faces. Ah! At this moment, an extremely tragic and desperate cry rang out. Everyone from the 5 major factions immediately looked over. With a clench of his sharp claws, Elderly, who had 8 wisps of divine fire, was completely dead. An expert who belonged to a faction in the boundless galaxy had died just like that. Everyone's expression changed drastically, and the atmosphere instantly became strange. Wang Xian swept his gaze across all of them, and the corner of his lips curled up slightly. Chapter 2040 2040 Infinite Gods 3 in Terror and Despair. Buzz. In the chaotic starfield, the wailing of heaven and earth could be heard. The austere atmosphere slowly became a little strange. The leaders of the 5 forces on the right stared at Wang Xian, and the rest with an awkward expression. Elder Li's death was clearly beyond everyone's expectations. In their opinion, even if this planet that flew over from the ruins had killed the gods that they had descended upon, its strength was at most 6 to 7 wisps of divine fire. From their point of view, this was already at the peak. However, now, a peak expert with 8 wisps of divine fire had been killed. This was something that they had never expected. It's not a one-sided killing. This is interesting. At the position behind them, the youth and Uncle Lin were hiding under a meteorite. When they saw a god with 8 wisps of divine fire die, they were slightly shocked. We really didn't expect this. No wonder the gods who descended from our Lingxiao treasured palace died in your hands. On the right of the center of the battlefield, the Lingxiao treasured palace master who was about to directly enter Earth gripped the war hammer in his hand tightly and growled in a cold voice. Buzz! As he spoke, the war hammer in his hand rotated, and a terrifying air wave spread out in all directions. Kill them first, then we'll go to the graveyard of the gods. He looked at the leaders around him and said indifferently. All right. The Hall Master of the Sacred Hall and the other three leaders nodded. Their gazes locked onto Ao Crab, and their eyes were filled with dense killing intent. Although the strength of the other party had completely exceeded their expectations, they were not too afraid. They really didn't believe that their side's hundreds of gods and leaders weren't a match for the other party. I want to see just how much strength they have. The Hall Master of the Sacred Hall revealed a cold expression as he exchanged a glance with the Hall Master of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace. 1-1. The Hall Master of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace slowly raised the war hammer in his hand and coldly spat. Kill him! Okay, let's end this quickly. The Temple Master of the Sacred Hall smiled and nodded lightly. As a powerful force that had stood in the boundless star field for hundreds of thousands of years, as the leader, they had already ignited 9 wisps of divine fire. With the entire force as their foundation, they controlled many resources and had powerful divine weapons in their hands. Even the middle-aged man who had instantly killed Elderly had ignited 9 wisps of divine fire. They were not afraid. Holy light, judgment! The Hall Master of the Sacred Hall raised the holy scepter in his hand. In an instant, streams of holy light seemed to streak across the sky behind him. Each stream of holy light was more than 10 meters thick and a few hundred kilometers long. They crisscrossed and covered Wang Xian and the rest. Void hammer, tremor! The Hall Master of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace raised the war hammer in his hand and dropped it into the void. Bang! 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 The entire void seemed to have exploded. Countless cyan-colored tremors in the void swept towards Wang Xian and the rest. The attacks of the 2 of them enveloped all of them together. Dragon King, leave the 5 of them to me! He saw their attacks and a terrifying fighting spirit erupted from his body. He moved his body and transformed into a devouring dragon that was 20,000 meters in size. Roar! A roar sounded from the side. He waved his tail and an earthen yellow energy swept forward. Boom! The earthen yellow energy swept past and the holy light and vibrations were all devoured by the earthen yellow energy. None of you can leave today! He roared and moved, instantly appearing in front of the palace lord. His dragon claw clawed at him. You're courting death! Seeing that his attack was blocked, the palace lord raised the war hammer in his hand. Waves of green energy gathered on the war hammer and met Ao Crab's dragon claw without any fear. Boom! A huge explosion sounded, and the impact of the war hammer covered an area of 100 kilometers. Bang! However, the moment the hammer collided with Ao Crab's dragon claw, the Temple Master's expression changed drastically. A terrifying power sent him flying backward. A large amount of blood oozed out from his arm. What? The Temple Master's expression changed drastically, and fear appeared on his face. Such powerful strength! The Temple Master's expression changed slightly when he saw this. He tapped the holy scepter in his hand lightly, and a majestic power of light entered his body, healing his injuries. Boom! 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 Following that, the Hall Master of the Sacred Hall released a light shadow, a light wing, and a light armor. Rays of light fell on the body of the Hall Master of the Lingxiao Treasure Hall, condensing into light wings and light armor on his body. This guy is very strong. Let's attack together. The expression of the Hall Master of the Lingxiao Treasure Hall changed slightly as he shouted at the other leaders. Attack! A fire giant, an old man covered in white cloth, and a middle-aged man with huge waves behind him. The 3 of them had solemn expressions. An expert who could send Zhang Lingtian flying with a single strike was definitely stronger than them. Lingxiao Divine Kingdom, Lingxiao Palace! The Lingxiao Hall Master was clad in light armor, and had light wings on his back. He stared coldly at Ao Crab and roared once again. Buzz! 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 The huge divine kingdom within a radius of dozens of kilometers emitted a green light. Beams of wind attribute imperial palaces flew towards him and slowly rotated around him. Shatter! He roared and the war hammer in his hand smashed towards the imperial palaces. Boom! The war hammer landed on the imperial palaces, and the imperial palaces smashed towards Ao Crab. The terrifying throne was like a meteorite. Go! Boom, boom, boom! A flaming meteorite condensed from flames, a white void cloth, and a giant void beast condensed from water elements all attacked Ao Crab. With just you guys? Ao Crab saw their attacks, and a look of contempt appeared in his eyes. He spread his enormous wings and flapped them quickly. Boom! 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 Streams of black soil instantly covered all their attacks. The black soil was like a swamp, melting and devouring streams of energy attacks. This is bad! The faces of the temple master of the Li Xiao treasured palace and the hall master of the Saint Hall changed slightly when they saw that their attacks were easily blocked again. Kill them all! Leave no one alive! At this moment, Wan Xian glanced at Ao Crab and the others from the front. He stared at the surroundings and gave a stern order. Yes, leave no one alive! Anyone who dares to invade us, kill them all! The group of Dragon Palace leaders revealed a violent killing intent. Kill! Ao Qitian raised the ocean-pacifying divine needle in his hand and charged straight at the gods in front. The rest of the godly state Dragon Palace members followed closely behind. The violent and terrifying pressure charged at the gods in front. Kill! The 20,000 members of the Dragon Palace also started to move. They stared at the 500,000 demigod-level experts around them as they charged forward. Chapter 2041 2041 The terrified and despairing infinite gods 4. Kill, kill, kill them! More than 20,000 people dare to fight against us, crush them! We have more than 100 gods, kill them! When the gods and 500,000 disciples of the 5 major forces saw that the people on this planet dared to attack them, cold killing intent appeared on their faces. They roared and immediately went to welcome them. Each of the 100 gods had been through hundreds of battles and had 500,000 disciples. None of them were lower than demigods, so how could they be afraid of the 20,000 plus experts in front of them? Whoosh! 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 Boom! 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 Ring! 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 However, when Ao Qitian and the other sticks, arrows, lightning, and that sudden clear sound rang out, they were stunned. 97, 98, 99, damn it, among them, there are no less than 100 gods who have ignited the divine fire. Be careful! Be careful of the demon monkey at the front with the stick in his hand. His strength is very terrifying. Be careful of the arrows and that special sound. Seal your hearing. Be careful! At the front, a god with 7 wisps of divine fire saw the people from the Dragon Palace rushing over. He sensed the terrifying auras of the people, and his expression changed slightly. The gods from the 5 major factions were completely dumbfounded when they sensed that there were no less than 100 experts. Especially when they sensed Ao Qitian's aura, they felt that this devil monkey's strength was no weaker than the leader of the Fire God Palace, the Pyramid, and the boundless sea of stars. Loud reminders rang out, and the stronger gods from the 5 major factions immediately released their powerful defenses. Boom! 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 In the void, terrifying energy collided with each other, and exploded in all sorts of ways. Waves of terrifying airwaves rushed out in all directions. Hiss! On Earth, everyone's faces were filled with shock when they saw this scene. After the shock, many people revealed gloating expressions. Haha, this group of large factions from the boundless star field are completely dumbfounded. They probably didn't expect the Dragon Palace to be so powerful. The number of gods in the Dragon Palace has reached more than 100. It's really terrifying. Now that those guys aren't arrogant anymore, they still want to kill us all. Now let's see what they can do. The Dragon King and the others can even kill the Eternal God Lord, let alone you guys. You damn guys, die! Everyone on Earth had excited expressions on their faces as they cursed. These guys still wanted to kill them, but it was still uncertain who would kill who. Not good, that devil monkey is in existence with 8 wisps of divine fire. Deputy Hall Master, you will block him! At this moment, in the air, a sea-pacifying needle that was dozens of kilometers long broke through the defenses of the 5 major forces. A god from the Holy Church shouted in fear. Leave it to me! At the Holy Church, a middle-aged man held the Sword of Light and went up to Ao Chitian directly. Thank you for the gifts! Wang Xian's eyes sparkled as he stared at the gods in front of him. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. There was only one person who had 8 wisps of divine fire and more than 10 people who had 7 wisps of divine fire. The overall strength was not something that the Dragon Palace could withstand. However, this was under the situation where he and Xiao Lan did not make a move. 5 elements millstone! Yin and Yang poles! Wang Xian collapsed into the void in front of him and shouted softly. Boom! He slowly raised his arm and the 5 elements millstone appeared in the sky. In the past 2 years, all the divine weapons with 7 attributes that Wang Xian had obtained were all devoured by the 5 elements millstone. Even the divine weapons that he obtained in the eternal divine kingdom were all devoured by the millstone. Now, the power of the 5 elements millstone was comparable to his increased strength. The 5 elements millstone within a radius of 300 to 400 kilometers floated in the air, emitting vast power. Above them, the 5 divine dragons pulled the incomparably huge millstone and crushed it forward. Damn it! How can this planet that rushed out from the ruins have so many terrifying experts? When they saw the 5 elements millstone that contained boundless power charging towards them, the expressions of everyone from the 5 great factions became ugly. Go, we'll block it! The group of gods with 7 divine flames looked at each other, then gritted their teeth and attacked the 5 elements millstone. Wang! The 5 elements millstone shook slightly, and the river of destruction swept towards them. Oh no, block it! Use the divine kingdom to block it! When they saw the river of destruction, more than 10 gods with 7 wisps of divine fire let out a loud roar. Boom! 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 One after another, divine kingdoms appeared behind him. The majestic energy within the divine kingdoms was fighting against the river of destruction. Yin and Yang extremes, crush! Wang Xian's right leg collapsed forward as the Yin and Yang extremes attacked the gods with 7 wisps of divine fire. The Yin and Yang poles, which were about 100 kilometers in circumference, were exceptionally eye-catching in the void. As the 2 poles rotated, the power of light and darkness turned into a chainsaw. Boom! Oh no, I can't hold on any longer! A god with the 7 wisps of divine fire shouted with a face full of fear. He quickly retreated backward. One of them retreated while the rest of them had a drastic change in expression. Damn it! A few of them could not dodge in time. Their faces were filled with fear. Boom! 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 Huge fireworks rose in the void. Numerous divine kingdoms were directly destroyed. All screams of despair were heard along with the wailing of the heaven and earth. 3 gods with 7 wisps of divine fire were killed instantly. With more than 10 gods with 7 wisps of divine fire, it was completely impossible for them to fight against Wang Xian. 5 elements millstone, 10,000 dragons roar! Wang Xian let out a low growl. 7 colored rays of light fell from his body onto the 5 elements millstone. Roar! 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 At this moment, divine dragons emerged from the 5 elements millstone and started to wreak havoc in the surroundings. Boom! 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 Oh no, run! Run! At this moment, it was not only the few gods with 7 colored divine flames. The dozens of gods in the surroundings were also shocked. They immediately hid in the surroundings. Oh! There's an assassin! Be careful, be careful! Suddenly, screams of pain rang out from the surroundings. Ao Yao and the others, who were hidden in the void, launched a fatal attack. Ao Yao led 2 thorn dragon species and instantly assassinated 3 gods with 3 wisps of divine fire. A dark haze instantly enveloped the heads of the 5 major factions' hundreds of gods. The enemy's strength had completely exceeded their expectations. Too strong! Run, run, run! They are all peak stage demigod existences. Let's run! Lord gods, save us! However, at this moment, screams suddenly sounded from the side. Some of the gods looked around and were completely stunned. Their 500,000 strong army was being slaughtered by 20,000 soldiers. The two were on completely different levels. 500,000 against 20,000, they had no ability to resist. Chapter 2042 2042 The Terrified and Despairing Boundless Gods 5. How could this be? These are the most elite disciples of our 5 great factions. All of them are above the demigod level, and there are a total of 500,000 of them. The gods of the 5 great factions swept their gazes over, revealing extremely embarrassed expressions. They were the most powerful factions in the boundless star field. The skyscraping treasured palace and the holy church were also considered very powerful factions in this star field. Their disciples were definitely elites. But now, they were being slaughtered quickly without the ability to resist at all. The strength of the members of the Dragon King's Dragon Palace is so terrifying. Every one of them is at least at the peak of the demigod realm. Those 500,000 people just surrounded our Earth, and now, haha! Too powerful. It's a pity that the Dragon Palace doesn't accept disciples, or else I would definitely join the Dragon Palace. On Earth, everyone looked around with envy and admiration on their faces. They had felt the overwhelming pressure and arrogance of the 500,000 people just now. They had said that they could easily slaughter them, but now, a member of the Dragon Palace could fight against hundreds of disciples of the 5 forces and kill them quickly. There were only a few thousand people who could fight against the disciples of the Dragon Palace. Moreover, they were killed quickly by the strange demon. The arrows were laced with a terrifying poison. Once they touched a demigod disciple, he would die instantly. Poison, a terrifying poison, was a great killing weapon. Apart from the poison, a strange voice entered their minds. Within this sound, the demigod rank 1 and rank 2 disciples didn't even have the strength to resist. They were crushed, completely crushed. The 500,000 disciples were defeated in a short instant. In less than 5 minutes, at least 200,000 disciples died. Corpses floated in the air. Those disciples who were still alive saw this scene and completely collapsed, losing all will to fight. This was not a battle, this was suicide. Fear and despair enveloped everyone's hearts. Some of the disciples could not help but ask the gods for help. Kiki, there's no need to ask for help. Your gods will live and die with you. 8-limbed demon Shah and the others swept a glance and revealed a sinister and mocking expression. They had come here to kill them. If they wanted to destroy the entire Earth, they would have to pay the price. Sister, let's go get some good stuff. That god with 2 wisps of divine fire has a wood attribute divine weapon. At the back, the group of girls had yet to make a move. Huar's eyes were bright as she stared at a god as she spoke to her sister. All right. Kyra nodded. The 2 of them patted the golden lion divine beast beneath them. Roar, roar! The 2 golden lions roared and entered the battlefield. So! The stellar grass above the 2 girls' heads flickered and disappeared in an instant. Ah! Soon, a miserable cry came from the front, and the 2 girls smiled. Over the past year, their strength had only increased by 1 level, but their stellar grass could now kill a god with 4 wisps of divine fire. 2-star grass attacking a god with 2 wisps of divine fire was a piece of cake. TSK, you 8 wisps of divine fire dare to fight against me? Die! At this moment, a violent aura filled an area of several hundred kilometers. In the nearby void, Ao Crab's dragon tail had completely entangled the 3 divine shadows. The 3 divine shadows were the leader of the pyramid, the leader of the fire god palace, and the leader of the boundless sea of stars. At this moment, the 3 of them were filled with despair as they stared at Ao Crab in shock. No, don't kill me. I'm willing to submit. The 5,000-meter-long fire giant roared in terror. You are not qualified! Ao Crab roared out with killing intent. He swept his draconic tail and swept forward. Boom! 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 3 terrifying sounds of collision rang out as the 3 fell into their god countries. The entire god countries shook. How is this possible? How can his strength be so terrifying? He's completely toying with us. On the side, the temple masters of the skyscraping treasured palace and the sacred hall had cold sweat on their foreheads. Their bodies were covered in blood, and one of the sacred hall master's eyes was completely blind. And there wasn't a single mark on Ao Crab's body. This made the 2 of them feel helpless. No matter what kind of attack it was, the other party could easily block it. The other party's attack was able to severely injure them in an instant. From the start of the battle, this monster was completely toying with them. This was not a battle of the same level. In fact, they even felt that peak deity realm experts should not be this terrifying. We are not a match for them! The hall master of the sacred hall roared in a low voice with some fear on his face. Go leave this place! Tell this news to an eternal god master, and have him kill all of them. Kill all of them! The palace master of the Lishao treasured palace had a ferocious expression on his face. They had never expected that the other party's strength would be so terrifying. The 2 of them scanned their surroundings and looked at the rapidly dying gods. They clenched their fists tightly. Right now, they only had one way. They had to tell the Eternal God Lord about this planet. They might receive the Eternal God Lord's protection. And this planet would be completely wiped out by the Eternal God Lord. Run! The 2 looked at each other, gritted their teeth, and made up their minds. One wing. They waved their arms, and the wings of light and the wings of wind attached themselves to each other. Then, they turned around and flew in the direction of the boundless galaxy. You want to run? It's too late! Seeing that they wanted to run, Ao Crab flapped his 2 ferocious dragon wings, and a huge black wall stood in the void. The throne of the Fire God Palace, the pyramid, and the leader of the boundless starry sea are dead! The Hall Master and the Hall Master are trying to escape. It's over! It's over! No, it's impossible! How could our Hall Master? When the gods saw the fall of their leader and wanted to escape, their faces were filled with panic. Even their leader had escaped. What else could they do to resist? Leave no one alive! Wang Xian shouted coldly when he saw the gods from the 5 major forces who were defeated. Kill, leave no one alive! If you want to kill us, all of you can stay! The gods from the Dragon Palace unleashed their full strength and attacked the gods who had lost their will to fight. Run! At this moment, the gods had no desire to fight. All they wanted was to escape quickly. However, it was obviously impossible to escape from the killing of the members of the Dragon Palace. In order to prevent any accidents, Wang Xian did not allow them to escape. Since they were here, none of them could escape. Chapter 2043. 2043, the Eternal God Lord has arrived. All of you will submit. Go. Bang! 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 Boom! 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 The sky in this chaotic region was abnormally bright. The God Nation exploded, burning with enormous flames. The sea of stars stopped flowing, giving off a huge rumble. Accompanied by miserable cries and the sorrowful cries of heaven and earth, the entire region was thrown into chaos. Energy tides formed in the void, and corpses flowed in the vacuum. The battle between more than 200 gods, even if it was in the boundless galaxy, would be a world-class battle. Only when there was a fight for the ultimate treasure of heaven and earth would such a large-scale battle break out. Ao Crab easily blocked the Hall Master of the Lishao Treasured Palace and the Hall Master of the Saint Hall. Wang Xian used the yin and yang poles to draw a line of death for the gods of the 5 major forces. Boom! 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 At this moment, 2 extremely intense cries of pain rang out, causing the gods to tremble slightly. They looked to the side. When they saw the war hammer of the hall master of the Li Shao treasured palace floating in the air and saw the sharp claws tearing apart the hall master of the holy hall, everyone was shocked. Buzz! 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 The more powerful the god, the more intense the cries of pain were. The temple master of the Li Shao treasured palace has fallen! The temple master of the sacred hall has fallen! At this moment, the remaining gods of the 5 major forces were shocked. Their faces were ashen. All their leaders had fallen. They had been organizing here for half a year. They were fervently waiting for the arrival of this planet. Many gods dreamed that they could obtain the inheritance of the god tomb and become the eternal god master. However, what they were waiting for now was not an endless opportunity, but a huge disaster. It was so laughable to think that they had been planning to destroy these people on this planet for half a year. Fear and despair had completely enveloped them. As for the 500,000 disciples, many of them had already given up on resisting. How could they resist? The Dragon King is so powerful. We haven't seen him make a move yet. The strength of the Dragon Palace is probably only stronger than that of the massive Dark God. The Dragon King is mighty and killed well. They still want to kill us, HMPH. In the future, our Earth will have the protection of the Dragon Palace. What else is there to be afraid of? Contrary to everyone from the 5 forces, the Earth members revealed excited expressions on their faces. All of them looked up at the void in awe, at the Dragon King and the members of the Dragon Palace. The terrifying battle had gradually come to an end, and now it was time to end it. There were over 100 gods, and at this moment, more than 20 of them were desperately trying to escape. As for the 500,000 disciples, they had completely lost their ability to resist, and now there were only 20,000 to 30,000 scattered. Among them, there were even some who were kneeling in the air, begging for mercy. This planet that flew over from the chaotic starfield is so powerful. There are actually over 100 gods. Moreover, that terrifying monster should have reached the peak of the god realm, right? At this moment, the young man who had been hiding at the back watched the scene with a face full of surprise. It's really exciting. This is the first time I've seen such an intense battle, he murmured as he looked at one of them. Why do I feel a sense of familiarity with those 2 girls riding on the golden lion? And the spiritual herb on top of their heads? It's somewhat familiar. Oh right, Uncle Lin, take a look. Don't those 2 girls feel very familiar? As he spoke, he looked at Uncle Lin at the side. Eh? Uncle Lin? What are you doing? At this moment, the middle-aged man standing beside him stretched out his 5 fingers, and the branches extended towards the battlefield. Wait, young master! Uncle Lin's forehead was full of sweat as he spoke to the youth. It was clear that his current actions had expended a lot of energy. Uncle Lin's strength was not very strong. He had only ignited 6 wisps of divine fire, so he still had to be careful when facing the gods on the planet in front of him. In the chaotic battlefield, a drop of divine blood was slowly wrapped up by a branch and disappeared without anyone noticing. Success! When Uncle Lin saw that the divine blood was caught, his face revealed an excited expression. One! He opened his palm and stared at the divine blood, his eyes shining. Uncle Lin, what are you doing? The youth stared at Uncle Lin, his eyes shining. This is a god of 5 wisps of divine fire from one of those forces. He wants to escape with a drop of divine blood, so I'll lure him over. Uncle Lin revealed a smile as he took out a drop of resplendent liquid from his interspatial ring. The drop of liquid dripped onto the drop of divine blood, causing it to tremble slightly. A palm-sized human figure slowly appeared. You! Who are you? What are you doing? The shadow appeared with a frightened look on his face. His eyes sparkled as he asked. Buzz! Uncle Lin took out a shiny leaf. Tell me, what's going on here? If you've done something good, I'll give you a lot of rewards. Eternal Divine Leaf! When the shadow saw the leaf, his body trembled. The Eternal Divine Leaf was an existence that shook the entire galaxy. Tell me, Uncle Lin said to him. Tell me, what's the situation on that planet? How can you guys be so stupid? You've been planning for more than half a year, and you're all destroyed. The young man couldn't help but ask. Yes, it's my lord. The shadow slowly calmed down, his eyes burning. If he could get the eternal divine leaf on the list, it might be a blessing in disguise for him. That planet was more than 10 years ago, the shadow said slowly. The god's tomb is really the god's tomb. Is there really a god's tomb on that planet? Or are there two? When they mentioned the god's tomb, Uncle Lin and the young man were extremely excited. Yes, sir. We are 100% sure that there are two divine tombs on that planet. Otherwise, the 5 great forces wouldn't have waited here for half a year, the Phantom said with certainty. 2 divine tombs? There really are 2 divine tombs. The young man's body was trembling. Uncle Lin's eyes were also burning. The value of 2 divine tombs could cause a fight between the 5 great godlords in the endless star field. It's true. The Phantom nodded its head with certainty. Young Master, contact Master, and the others immediately. Contact the Lord God Lord, Uncle Lin said to the young man with an excited face. I know. The young man was also excited. He immediately took out his communication device. The communication stone plate flickered slightly, and a dignified phantom appeared in front of them. What do you want from me? The imposing middle-aged man saw that the young man was clearly somewhat impatient, and he sternly shouted. Father, I have a shocking piece of big news here. The young man's face revealed an excited expression as he said, Oh? The middle-aged man's gaze was imposing as he stared at him, listening at the side. Chapter 2044. 2044. The eternal God of 2044 had arrived, and all of you were submitting to him. Is there really a divine tomb? Behind a meteorite in the chaotic area, the shadow in front of the young man heard his son's report, and revealed an excited expression. Master, we should be able to confirm it. Uncle Lin respectfully nodded to the majestic shadow. Good boy. If there really is a divine tomb there, your merit is immeasurable. The imposing figure revealed an excited smile. His gaze swept over Uncle Lin, and his eyes shot out a fiery expression. Old Lin, you guys wait here. You must ensure your safety. As he spoke, he looked at the young man again. I will immediately report to your great-grandfather. I will rush over to your place very soon. It's the old master. It's father. All of this is my credit. Hee. The young man's face revealed an excited expression. Don't worry, when the time comes, your great-grandfather will reward you. As the majestic figure finished speaking, his figure directly disappeared. Young master, we'll wait here. Uncle Lin's gaze looked towards the direction of Earth, as he said softly to the young man. Good. The young man's face was filled with excitement as he stood at the side and waited quietly. In the middle of the battlefield, when the last scream disappeared, the entire void was filled with corpses and divine kingdoms. There were more than 100 divine kingdoms, and every one of them was exuding a majestic aura. Dragon King, 3 of the members who ignited the divine flame have perished. More than 50 ordinary disciples of the Dragon Palace have perished. In the middle of the sky above Earth, Prime Minister Gui came forward to report to Wang Xian. In a war, there would definitely be deaths. This war was a complete victory for the Dragon Palace. The deaths of 2 godly state experts and more than 50 disciples were only a small number. Compared to the gains, this small loss was not worth mentioning. Collect all the corpses of the godly state in the void. Also, give Xiaoran, Lingfei, and the Dragon Gate Academy a godly artifact. Wang Xian instructed Prime Minister Gui. It's the Dragon King. Prime Minister Gui replied immediately. Hee, Dragon King, can you give me a divine kingdom? I'm only 1 divine kingdom away from upgrading it. At this moment, Qin Feiyang came over and said with a smile. Lu Mingxin, who was beside him, rolled her eyes at him. Sure, pick any divine kingdom here. I'll give you the resources inside as well, Wang Xian said to Qin Feiyang with a smile. Recently, Qin Feiyang and Lu Mingxin had been very close. It seemed that the two of them might be together. As Ling Xiu's disciple and Xiao Ran's sister, Wang Xian was naturally very generous. Moreover, Qin Feiyang possessed some of the constitution of Kuan and was indirectly controlled by Lan Qingwei. He could be considered as one of them. Thank you, Dragon King. I have already set my sights on using the divine kingdom of the 8 wisps of divine fire god. When I become the eternal God Lord in the future, I will definitely repay you well. Qin Feiyang thickened his skin and flew directly towards the divine kingdom of the 8 wisps of divine fire god. Wang Xian smiled and did not stop him. With more than 100 divine kingdoms, the resources in them, as well as the corpses, could greatly increase the strength of the Dragon Palace. Among the corpses were 2 gods with 9 wisps of divine fire. The members of the Dragon Palace began to clean up the battlefield. The disciples of the Dragon Gate Academy who participated in the battle were also excited to receive the interspatial rings of the disciples of the 5 major forces. All of them were excited. Now, our Earth can be considered to have arrived in this area with great strength, right? The Dragon Palace is too powerful. There are more than 100 godly state experts, and this is even before the space beast makes a move. With the current strength of the Dragon Palace, it should be able to suppress an area in the boundless star field, right? On Earth, everyone was discussing with heated faces. At this moment, everyone once again realized the power and invincibility of the Dragon Palace. The disciples who had followed the gods had completely lost all hope. Even the 5 major forces had been destroyed by the Dragon King's Dragon Palace. What else could they do? Many disciples were still thinking of returning to their own forces after returning to the boundless galaxy. Now, it seemed that there was no longer a need. Some people were even considering whether they should join the Dragon Gate Academy. They knew that with the current strength of the Dragon Palace, it could definitely be ranked in the top 3 outside of the 5 major forces in the boundless galaxy. How terrifying! Let's go back! Wang Xian looked at the group of girls beside him, and waved his hand at Hua Kair who was riding on the golden lion not far away. We found a nice-looking divine weapon. Old Wang, take a look! Hua rode the golden lion to Wang Xian's side with a smile on her face. She waved the lotus-like wood-type artifact in her hand. Call me Daddy, little girl! Guan Shuqing saw Hua coming over and heard her address her. She teased her. I won't. You're the little girl. Humph! Hua pouted at her. Guan Shuqing and the rest smiled. Although Hua Kair was a god who had been resurrected and might have lived for thousands of years, Guan Shuqing and the rest realized that the two of them were not as mature as they were. It was unknown how they became gods in the first place. This also made Guan Shuqing and the rest have a good impression of the 2 girls. They would often bicker with each other when they were free and it was harmonious. And because of Guan Shuqing and the rest, the 2 girls stopped calling Wang Xian father and called him Old Wang instead. Wang Xian smiled at the side and rubbed Hua's head. Let's go. We have obtained quite a lot of treasures this time. You can take whatever you like when the time comes. As he spoke, he led the group of girls toward the Dragon Palace. At the same time, while the Dragon Palace was clearing the battlefield and clearing the harvest, it was located in the east of the boundless galaxy. In the center of the east, there was an enormous void forest. The roots of the strange trees in the forest were rooted in the void. Each tree was more than 10 kilometers in size and 5 to 6 kilometers in height. The roots and branches of these trees were connected together, forming a void ground. The entire forest was at least 100 times the size of Earth. In the center of the forest, there was an unusually large divine tree. The entire divine tree was blooming with divine light. It stood tall in the void. It was 100 kilometers in size, with luxuriant branches and leaves that covered an area of several thousand kilometers. This was one of the most famous areas in the boundless star field. In the east, Eternal Divine Leaf. The place where Divine Leaf Divine Master lived was the residence of one of the 5 Eternal Divine Masters of the boundless star field. At this moment, a vast figure flew out from the top of the divine tree. The leader was a middle-aged man about 2-3 meters tall. Although the middle-aged man was tall, he looked slightly thin and weak. His clothes also made him look more scholarly. The middle-aged man held a wooden staff in his hand. In terms of power, this middle-aged man looked the weakest, even like a mortal. But it was also this extraordinary power that was very eye-catching. Chapter 2045. 2045. When the eternal God Master arrives, all of you will submit. Let's go! At the leaf of the eternal God of the East, the scholar-like middle-aged man said indifferently. He raised the seemingly ordinary wooden staff in his hand and lightly tapped the position in front of him. Buzz! The entire void seemed to tremble. A black hole slowly appeared, and the black hole slowly enveloped everyone behind him. Other than the middle-aged man, there were 40 to 50 figures behind him that contained enormous divine power. Buzz! The black hole closed. Buzz! Very quickly, everyone appeared on the planet. Grandfather! The dignified middle-aged man saw the black hole appear in front of him. His face revealed a respectful and cautious expression as he bowed towards the middle-aged man that slowly appeared. Lord God! Behind the middle-aged man, 5 figures hurriedly knelt down in the air and shouted loudly. Their faces were also extremely respectful. Even though they were all gods, when they faced this middle-aged man, they all knelt down from the bottom of their hearts. This was because the middle-aged man in front of them was the eternal divine leaf. Little son, pass me Shiobei's position. The divine leaf god lord looked at the middle-aged man in front of him and said calmly, It's Grandpa. According to one of my subordinates, 90% of that planet has a divine tomb, and there are 2 of them. The middle-aged man called Shaosun immediately said, If there really are 2 of them. The divine leaf god lord muttered, his eyes shining. In the end, his grandson handed him a branch. He sensed it, and the wooden staff in his hand gently pointed forward. Buzz! The black hole appeared again. God Lord Shinai stepped inside, and the gods behind him followed. It's moving. That planet is moving again. They're ready to continue moving forward. In the chaotic starfield, the young man saw Earth moving forward again, and shouted in slight surprise. I wonder what Lord God Lord and the others are. Buzz! Before Uncle Lin could finish his words, a black hole appeared out of thin air in front of them. Greetings, Lord God Lord! Uncle Lin saw the figure in the black hole and immediately knelt down. Great-grandfather! The young man also put away his careless temperament, and immediately bowed in a cautious manner. Black hole travel was a unique ability of the eternal God Lord. Its speed was hundreds of times faster than the speed of light. The divine leaf God Lord nodded and looked forward. Xiaobei, is this the planet you mentioned? He looked in the direction of Earth and asked the young man. It's great-grandfather. I've been observing here for more than half a year. Just now, there were 5 forces and more than 100 gods waiting here for the arrival of this planet. We heard the leaders of the 5 forces say that they want to enter the divine tomb, but now they've been killed by the experts on this planet. We have a fallen god here. He can also confirm it. The young man immediately nodded and took the phantom condensed from the drop of divine blood. Greetings, Lord God Master. What the young master said is all the truth. This lowly one doesn't dare to hide anything. The phantom saw God Lord Shinai kneeling down in excitement, and immediately promised. Lord God Lord, let's go investigate. At this time, the gods standing behind immediately said respectfully. God Lord Shinai didn't say anything. His figure moved and came to the position directly in front of Earth. The gods knew the eternal God Lord's character, and immediately flew toward Earth. Uncles, stop this planet and take complete control. The middle-aged man called Shaosun said to the gods. Yes. The gods floated in the air, and the 7 old men in the lead trembled. Flowers bloom, but they break, trapped. The 7 old men waved their arms, and thorns appeared in the void. Whoosh! 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 At this moment, the densely packed thorns seemed to be endless as they covered the entire Earth. The sudden appearance of this scene caused the people on Earth who were excitedly chatting to be completely stunned. They raised their heads and slightly opened their mouths, revealing expressions of shock on their faces. Whoosh! 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 The densely packed thorns were each 100 meters thick, and they directly covered the entire earth. Rumble! At this moment, rays of green light enveloped the earth, and the earth directly stopped in the void. Furthermore, the thorns directly surrounded the entire earth, completely sealing it off. Only a few 100 kilometers ahead of them was an exit. Seeing this terrifying scene, everyone's faces were filled with shock. What? What's going on? Hiss, could it be that there are even more powerful experts coming to attack us? Heavens, the entire earth is completely enveloped this. Everyone was stunned. This scene was far more shocking than the 5 great powers' attack earlier. The entire earth was completely covered. What kind of existence could do this? God Lord Shinai has arrived. All of you will submit. At this moment, a vast voice resounded throughout the entire earth. God Lord Shinai? Eternal God Lord? Hearing this voice, everyone trembled and revealed an incredulous expression. Eternal God Lord, it's actually the Eternal God Lord who has arrived. My God, this! How could it be? There's actually an Eternal God Lord here. What is this kind of existence doing here? It's over. He has directly trapped our Earth. He doesn't come with good intentions. Everyone had a hint of fear on their faces. They didn't know how powerful the Eternal Lord was. Even the former Divine Lord Guangyi was a fallen Divine Lord. There was less than 1/10 of his strength left. Moreover, this Divine Leaf Divine Lord was one of the overlords who had suppressed the boundless star field. Such an existence wasn't something that the Divine Lord Guangyi could compare to. Eternal God Lord? At this moment, the expressions of Wang Xian and the others who were in the Dragon Palace's Dragon King Hall changed drastically when they heard this voice. They moved and immediately arrived above the Dragon Palace. An Eternal God Lord was definitely not someone that the Dragon Palace could contend against. Even with Ao Crab around, it would be difficult for him to fight against an Eternal God Lord who had suppressed the boundless star field for hundreds of thousands of years. It was already good enough for him to escape unscathed. When they were floating on the surface of the sea and looking at the sky, their expressions changed slightly. The entire earth had been completely enveloped. Shu Qing, Qin Yu, Feng Luan, you girls, immediately move the Dragon Palace to the Transcendence Continent. Wang Xian immediately said to them. Little Xian! The girls were slightly shocked and their expressions changed drastically. The Dragon Palace can't withstand the attack of the Eternal Lord. Just in case, you guys should head to the Transcendence Continent first. Wang Xian looked at them and said solemnly. No, we'll go. What about you guys, Xiao Xian? The group of girls' expressions changed slightly as they said anxiously. We'll take a look at the specific situation first. However, to be on the safe side, the Dragon Palace will move the Transcendence Continent first. You guys should follow them too. Quick! Surrender! Just as Wang Xian finished his sentence, an extremely terrifying pressure enveloped Earth. At this moment, even Wang Xian's body trembled. Quick! He urged the group of girls and looked at the members of the Dragon Palace. Let's go! Chapter 2046 2046 Eternal God, kneel down? Go! Buzz! 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 I am the Dragon King of the Dragon Palace on Earth. I am here to pay my respects to you, God Yi. May I know why you have come to Earth? After Wang Xian finished speaking to the group of girls, he led dozens of godly state experts from the Dragon Palace and flew toward the entrance. At the same time, Wang Xian's voice was transmitted to them. However, there was no response from the sky. When they flew out from the exit, they immediately saw dozens of figures outside. At the front, dozens of vast voices were suspended in the air. The leaders were 7 old men. Each of them had a terrifying aura. Peak of the godly state! Sensing the might of the 7 of them, Wang Xian was slightly shocked. His face was filled with a solemn expression. There were 7 peak of the godly state. The group of gods behind them were all above 5 wisps of godly fire. In the middle of the void at the back, a middle-aged man stood there quietly. At a glance, it was as if the entire sky was centered around that middle-aged man. Father, they are the experts on this planet. That middle-aged man is very strong. He easily killed 2 gods with 9 wisps of divine fire. The young man walked to his father's side and reminded him softly. Okay. The middle-aged man nodded his head with a dignified expression. His gaze swept across Wang Xian and the rest as he narrowed his eyes slightly. If you meet the god of divine leaves, kneel down immediately. He took 2 steps towards the void slowly as he shouted at Wang Xian and the rest with a dignified gaze. Boom! In an instant, waves of extremely terrifying pressure swept towards Wang Xian and the rest. Everyone's expression changed drastically. Humph! Ao Crab's body shook as a wave of black soil filled the surroundings, completely blocking their pressure. Whoosh! 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 At this moment, the Divine Leaf Master looked over slowly. As far as he could see, a thorn cage had appeared around Wang Xian and the rest, completely enveloping them. Not good, break! Ao Crab raised his arm. His entire arm immediately transformed into a dragon claw and attacked the cage directly. Bang! However, when the sharp claw landed on the cage, it only left a crack on it. This is bad! Ao Crab's heart sank, and his face revealed an extremely grave expression. Dragon King, his strength is very, very strong, he said to Wang Xian with an embarrassed expression. When the Divine Lord of Shinai saw a crack on the cage, he swept a glance at Ao Crab and turned his gaze to earth. There is no tomb of the gods on this planet. At this moment, he spoke slowly. There is no god's tomb? His words caused the expressions of everyone around to change drastically. The young man widened his eyes and let out a cry of surprise. How is this possible? How can there be no god's tomb? Didn't you say that there is a god's tomb? He looked at the god's blood phantom that Uncle Lin was holding and said with a somewhat embarrassed expression. Lord God Master, the information we received is 100% that there is a god's tomb. How can it be? Could it be that the god's tomb has been obtained by them? It must be. Otherwise, this planet that walked out from the ruins wouldn't have such an expert. The divine blood phantom trembled as it roared. The Divine Leaf Master slowly frowned, his face revealing a deep disappointment. If there were really 2 divine tombs here, he might be able to allow his wife to step into the Eternal Master realm. Now, Wang! His body moved, and he continued flying forward, entering through the entrance. Boom! At the same time, an imposing aura surged toward Earth. Is this the Eternal God Lord? Hiss, Eternal God Lord, this is the Eternal God Lord, how terrifying! Under the pressure of the 7 peak godly state experts, everyone was either kneeling or lying on the ground. When God Lord Shinai descended, everyone felt as if the sky was falling. Everyone looked at the figure in the sky with extremely pale faces. Great-grandfather, is there really no god tomb? The youth following behind couldn't help but fly over and ask God Lord Shinai. The other gods followed closely behind. The 7 peak divine realm elders waved their hands and brought the cage over. That's the Dragon King! The Dragon King and the others are trapped in that cage. Oh my God, we're doomed! We're doomed! When everyone on Earth saw the Dragon King and the others trapped in the cage, they were all shocked. Even the Dragon King and the others were subdued in an instant. Was this the Eternal God Lord? Everyone took a deep breath and looked at the Divine Leaf God Lord in the sky with fear. Quick, we'll immediately move the Dragon Palace to the Extraordinary Continent. Even if we die, we can be resurrected through the Dragon Palace. At this moment, in the ocean, a group of girls said anxiously. The authority of the Dragon Palace had been given to them, and they could move the earth. They had never thought that an eternal God would come here. The girls' faces were a bit ugly and full of worry. If we escape now, then what about Father and the others? Hua and Kaya were even more anxious as they spoke to the girls. If we stay here now, we'll only add trouble. Only by escaping from here can Xiao Xian and the others truly be safe. Feng Wuan rationally spoke to the two little girls. The two little girls looked at them at a loss. Buzz. At this moment, the Dragon Palace trembled slowly and was prepared to move. You guys have obtained the God's tomb? In the sky, the young man looked at Wang Xian and the rest with an embarrassed expression and shouted sternly. Everyone, we don't have a God's tomb here. When Wang Xian heard their words, his expression changed slightly and he immediately said, Damn it, how can there not be a God's tomb? The young man's expression was a little ugly. The young man's father, who was beside him, also frowned slightly. Eh? Suddenly, a look of surprise appeared on the face of the god of Xinai. He raised his eyebrows and waved the wooden staff in his hand slightly in the direction of the ocean. Crack! 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 In the sky, an incomparably huge wooden palm slowly formed. The palm area reached a radius of 1,000 kilometers as it directly grabbed towards the ocean. Oh no! Wang Xian's expression changed instantly when he saw the divine leaf god making his move. Roar! Ao Crab roared and attacked the cage again. Boom! However, the cage seemed to be indestructible. After a few consecutive attacks, the cage could not be broken. Crash! In the ocean, the terrifying wooden claw slowly grabbed the Dragon Palace. The terrifying strength resisted the strength of the wooden claw. However, a level 6 Dragon Palace could only withstand attacks below the level of the Eternal Lord. It could not withstand the attacks of the Divine Leaf Lord. Oh no, our Dragon Palace has been discovered. In the Dragon King's palace, the group of girls were horrified when they saw that the Dragon Palace was out of control. Oh no, Daddy and the rest are trapped. Hua Kair noticed that Wang Xian and the rest were trapped and her expression changed slightly. Get out! They immediately rode on the golden lion and flew out. Chapter 2047. 2047 Eternal God Master 2047 knelt down. Get out! Inside the Dragon Palace, Prime Minister Gui's expression changed slightly when he saw the Dragon Palace being grabbed by a terrifying claw. He immediately ordered loudly. All the members of the Dragon Palace immediately flew to the Dragon Palace. Boom! 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 Instantly, more than 26,000 members flew out of the Dragon Palace. Every member of the Dragon Palace emitted a powerful battle intent. Let go of our Dragon King! They stared at the Divine Leaf God Master and his group in the air and roared. Hiss! At this moment, everyone on Earth looked toward the ocean. When they saw the Dragon Palace being grabbed into the air, their eyes widened in shock. The invincible Dragon King and the invincible Dragon Palace in their hearts had no power to resist the Divine Leaf God Master at all. This was too terrifying. The fate of Earth would depend on God Lord Xinai. God Lord Xinai didn't respond to the roars of the members of the Dragon Palace. It was as if he didn't respond at all. His eyes were full of surprise as he stared at the Dragon Palace that had been captured into the void. Dragon King? Humph, all of you kneel down in the void and surrender. Otherwise, you will die. God Lord Xinai didn't speak, but it didn't mean that the others didn't speak. Kneel! The young man's father looked at everyone in the Dragon Palace and shouted coldly. Kneel! Seeing that they dared to offend the God Lord, the 7 elders didn't show any anger on their faces. They stepped forward, and a terrifying pressure enveloped everyone in the Dragon Palace. All the disciples of the Dragon Palace trembled slightly. In front of a peak stage God Realm expert, a trace of fear appeared on their faces. They couldn't be defeated by force. What a terrifying pressure! Hua and Kair felt the pressure coming from the crowd below the Dragon Palace, and their bodies trembled slightly. The 2 golden lions were even trembling as they sat down and howled in low voices. It was too terrifying. At this moment, the entire earth was silent, and everyone's breathing was somewhat hurried as they looked on with pale faces. Sister! Suddenly, a trembling and excited voice sounded. Hua was slightly stunned. She looked at her elder sister and saw that her elder sister's eyes were slightly red. Her face was filled with astonishment. "Little sister, look at him! Does he look like him? Does he look like him?" Kyra pointed at the indifferent divine leaf god master in the air and said with a trembling body, "Why, elder sister?" Hua looked over. When she saw God Lord Shunye's face, she was completely stunned. It seems, even his aura is similar." In an instant, Hua's eyes turned red. Her body moved, and she blankly flew toward the strange yet familiar figure in the sky. Kyra also stared at that figure and flew directly over. "Hua, Kyra, be careful!" When Guan Shuqing and the other girls saw that the two were actually charging toward God Lord Divine Leaf, their expressions changed greatly, and they immediately cried out in alarm. Hua Kite ignored their cries and blankly flew forward. A distance of several hundred kilometers was very close to them, who had already ignited 3 wisps of divine fire. Hua Kite flew over, instantly causing the eternal divine leaf gods in the void. The young man and his father who were standing in the void raised their eyebrows slightly. Their eyes were cold. "Hua and Kite, go back!" Wan Xian was also stunned when he saw the 2 girls rushing over. He immediately shouted. This time, the 2 girls did not listen to him. Their eyes were fixed on the figure. The god of divine leaves, who seemed to be independent from the rest of the world, swept his indifferent gaze over. His eyes, which had not shown the slightest fluctuation, were sparkling. His hand holding the wooden staff trembled slightly. His body, which seemed to be able to support the heavens and the earth, seemed to have bent slightly. He fixed his gaze on the 2 figures flying over. "Big block!" At this moment, Hua suddenly shouted, her eyes filled with tears. The gods behind God Lord Shinai frowned and looked at her with some bewilderment. "Stop!" The young man's father was full of confusion. He took a step behind God Lord Shinai and shouted at Hua Kaiyar. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a pressure came toward him, causing him to be slightly startled. He immediately looked at his grandfather. Plop! Everyone was shocked. Under the incredulous gazes of the eternal gods, their Lord God Lord actually knelt down in the void. He flew towards the 2 girls and knelt down, slowly spreading his arms. What made them tremble even more was that at this moment, God Lord Godleaf's tears flowed down. "Daddy! Daddy!" Hua Kai's tears flowed down as she threw herself into God Lord Godleaf's embrace. "Little Yuwen, little Yuro! I didn't expect that, you guys." God Lord Shinai spread his arms and hugged Hua tightly as he called out softly in excitement. "Yuwen? Yuro?" Seeing their God Lord kneeling in the air and hugging 2 little girls who were only about 1.6 meters tall, the eternal leaf gods were slightly shocked. Hearing his grandfather's words, the dignified middle-aged man widened his eyes and was filled with disbelief. Winyuro. These 2 names were his aunt's names. He had never met his aunt. Even his father, who had already died, did not have a deep impression of his 2 sisters. He only knew that his 2 aunts had died unexpectedly when his father was 5 or 6 years old. As for how they died, he did not know, and no one dared to ask. Not long after his 2 aunts died, his grandfather stepped into the eternal divine Lord realm. And in less than 10 years, his grandfather gained another title. Deadwood Divine Leaf. What was a deadwood? A deadwood. He learned from his father that because of the death of his 2 aunts, his grandfather became sick from longing for them. He made an unexpected breakthrough and became a deadwood divine leaf. His expression was cold, neither sad nor happy. He had only seen his grandfather smile when Xiaobei was born. "They are my aunts!" The mighty middle-aged man was slightly stunned as he looked at this scene in a daze. Behind him, the young man was completely stunned. He looked at this scene in a daze. His grandfather? Those 2 girls who had suddenly appeared? What was this? Buzz. At the back, the 7 elders' expressions changed slightly when they saw what their God Lord had said and saw this scene. They waved their arms, immediately covering the entire area, making it impossible to see anything below. The 7 elders immediately flew forward and arrived at the back of God Lord Shinai. Greetings, your princesses! The 7 elders knelt in the air and called out respectfully. As the 7 strongest subordinates of the eternal God Lord, they had followed God Lord Shinai for more than 1 generation. Their father and even their grandfather had followed the God Lord. They naturally had to be familiar with everything about the God Lord. When they saw this scene, they knew that the 2 daughters that the God Lord had doted on the most, the 2 daughters that had caused the God Lord pain, were still alive. These were the princesses of their eternal God Leaf. They were also the pearl of the eternal God Leaf. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.